Next, it's Greg Hughes. Is he justified?
Well,
is he ancient?
Yes, he's certainly ancient. Justified,
Who can tell?
I don't know.
Who can
Both,
tell?
yeah. Listen, thanks, Rory. See you tomorrow.
Cheers,
It's the 9 till noon show. It is time for a news update, and it's good morning to Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Craig. Good morning. The Education Minister admits the reopening of schools will not be without challenge. Schools are to reopen tomorrow as planned, following a meeting between teaching unions and the Department of Education. It's despite concerns from the ASTI that some schools could be missing up to 50% of their staff due to COVID-related absences. Education Minister Norma Foley says different schools will face different challenges.
There is a very clear, I suppose, hierarchy of priority in terms of students, in terms of, a particular provision being made for special schools and special classes and younger children who cannot engage in, say, the remote teaching and learning, and obviously at second level for exam students. Schools will operate to their absolute maximum capacity.
Meanwhile, NEFRID is to consider a reduction in the isolation period for close contacts when it meets tomorrow. Coalition leaders are seeking a recommendation due to Omicron's impact on services and industry, with many businesses dealing with staffing shortages. The issue is also impacting the health system, with hospitals being urged to redeploy staff and prioritise urgent care. Well, there's been a slight drop in the number of infectious cases of COVID-19 at Letterkenny University Hospital. Yesterday, the hospital was dealing with the highest number of patients with COVID in the country at 59. However, latest figures show that has decreased to 56. A Donegal councillor says he will be urging the authority to liaise with the HSE and others to assess how the fire service in the county can assist the ambulance service. Yesterday, Deputy Padraig McLaughlin said he'd been told by the National Ambulance Service that it would welcome backup from fire service personnel, particularly in cases of cardiac issues. In November, Councillor Michael McClafferty asked the council to explore such an option, but officials pointed out that service is not resourced to provide medical backup, and to do so could compromise its core functions. Councillor McClafferty has confirmed he'll be raising the issue again, saying the council, HSE and government should work together to address the issue of resources.
In fairness, although the reply I got was less than positive, they did leave room for talking about it again. Welcome very much what Deputy Padraig McLaughlin's achieved there at the minute now. We're getting a positive response itself, at least from the ambulance crew itself. This is going to have to go back to the council now again to try and get resources and so on, and then there's something that I will be looking to bring back to the table now again as soon as possible.
Weather now, it will be a mostly dry day with some sunny spells, but there will be a few isolated showers. Highest temperatures today of 3 to 6 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock.
If your child is aged 5 to 11, you can now register for their free COVID-19 vaccine. COVID-19 usually causes mild to moderate illness in this age group, but it can cause more severe illness. All vaccines used in Ireland are tested before they're approved by the European Medicines Agency. To find out more or to register, go to hsc.ie or call HSE Live on 1800 700 700 from the HSE.
And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, the 9 to noon show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
And it is a very good morning to you. 4 minutes past 9 on this Wednesday, the 5th of January, 2022. I do hope you're well, and I hope we can enjoy your company for the next 3 hours on the show. We've got a busy one lined up for you. Lots of different types of topics for us to discuss, and we want your views and your suggestions as to what you want to talk about, an issue you wish to raise. How do you do so? Well, you can call Caroline right now on 07491 25000, 07491 25000. Your WhatsApps and texts, as always, to that familiar number to you now, 086 60 25000. Email, if that's your thing, comments at highlandradio.com. And a very good morning to you as you join us to watch us on our social media. We're on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, or on Facebook, Highland Radio or Highland Radio News and Sport, where you can leave your comments there or interact with us there, and we can pick those up too. Let's look at the newspapers for this Wednesday morning, and we'll start with the Donegal Post, with Irish gaining full status as an official language of the European Union this week. This will give many Donegal people a perfect opportunity to gain employment throughout the many inner sanctums of Brussels in the months and years ahead. Former Donegal MEP Pat the Cope Gallagher, who was a great promoter of the Irish language while a member of the European Parliament, told the Donegal Post, "I very much welcome the official EU recognition of the Irish language." Though that official recognition was there for a couple of years, but I believe it was us that sought a derogation of it, which means it only came into force at the start of this year. The Inish Times this morning: a developer was pressuring Donegal County Council to increase the agreed asking price for 5 micro-affected houses in Inishowen. You can read more about that inside and on the front of that paper. The Irish Independent: the end is in sight for restrictions or restrictive close contact rules for people who have had booster vaccines after the National Public Health Emergency Team was told to review the measures. The government's instructions is hoping to follow the example of the US, where the Centre for Disease Control recommended ending the need for close contacts who are boosted and showing no symptoms to isolate as long as they wear a mask in public. Those rules contrast sharply to here, where close contacts are required to isolate for 5 days, even if they have no symptoms and are fully vaccinated. They're also asked to do 3 antigen tests during this period. Those who have not received a booster are required to isolate for 10 days and do 5 antigen tests if you can get them. Easing or abolishing the need for close contacts to restrict movements will reduce pressure on businesses and frontline services where staff shortages have become a major issue. NEFIT is to meet tomorrow to examine the government's request to change the isolation rules, which, you know, they come up with public health advice, and we seem to, when I say we, sorry, I should say the government, follow that to the letter of the law, but when it can sort of start interfering with the day-to-day workings of the country, the government say, hold on, now you're going to have a look at that because we need more people out and about. But it'll probably be welcomed by most people. The Irish Times this morning, and we'll be speaking more about this to a former senior guarder in the Traffic Corps. Just 1 in 4 people brought to court for driving while using their mobile phones are being convicted. New data shows that between 2018 and 2020, more than 50,000 such cases were listed in the district court, but conviction rates ranged from 14% in Sligo and Meath to 36% in County Wicklow. The average across 83 district courts in 26 counties was just under 25%. We'll try and get to the bottom of that a little later on in the programme. The Irish Daily Mail tells us that the government has stood firm in its decision to reopen schools this week, but principals have warned that whole classes may have to be sent home as soon as they reopen. Public health officials insisted yesterday that there is no rationale to delay the reopening, even though the Omicron wave has yet to peak and another 21,302 COVID-19 cases were reported last night. And I think we all know that figure is just at this stage almost plucked out of the sky. It's much greater than that. People simply can't get tests. Ireland now has the highest COVID incidence rate in the EU, with the Chief Medical Officer warning that it was inevitable that children would pick up COVID-19 from a household contact in the coming days and weeks, with the positivity rate among those tested now soaring to a staggering 57%. Well, I wouldn't find that staggering. I mean, if you are only testing people, or for the most part only testing people with positive antigen tests, wouldn't it be staggering if that figure wasn't as high as 57%? You throw in there GP referrals and other routine testing, that would bring the percentage down. But if we weren't seeing a high positivity rate when testing only those, for the most part, with a positive antigen test, that would be staggering to me. But anyway, that's their slant on it on the front of that paper. On to the tabloids now, and the Irish Daily Star tells us that an off-licence operator in the north has said he expects to cash in as minimum unit alcohol pricing is now in effect on the other side of the border. The controversial measure sees Ireland become one of only a small number of countries worldwide to introduce a floor price for the cost of alcohol drinks. Seamus McNamee, the director of the first and last off-licence in Jonesborough in County Armagh, said the change in pricing is set to benefit his business. Over time, he would like it to be brought into Northern Ireland as well, he said. Everyone will be on the one playing field regarding health service and abuse of alcohol, Mr. McNamee said, although it was clear from the spokesperson that we spoke to yesterday from the Alcohol Action Forum or Ireland, that this measure is not actually to address the abuse of alcohol, those that are addicted to it. We are in a position, he said, where we can benefit from minimum pricing that has been brought into the south. The only thing that will go against me is the exchange rate. When people get a chance in a couple of months' time, when they get over Christmas, I would expect to see a big influx of southern trade. On to the Irish Sun now, and the ongoing controversy surrounding Britain's Prince Andrew. He's attempting to weasel his way out of his bombshell sex assault lawsuit on at least 4 technicalities, a court heard yesterday. The Royals' attack dog attorney Andrew Brettler was unleashed in a hearing against the Duke's accuser, Virginia Robert Guthrie. But Mr. Brettler was met with scepticism at almost every turn as he made his arguments, with Judge Lewis Kaplan telling him at one point, "That's not a dog, that's going to hunt here." Mr. Brettler argued that a newly disclosed €400,000 secret agreement between Ms. Guthrie and the late financier Jeffrey Epstein in 2009 released the royal from any legal action, and he said the settlement had resulted in a similar lawsuit from Andrew's accuser being dismissed. Judge Kaplan said last night that he would rule on the future of the lawsuit pretty soon, but he seemed to give all indications that he's not going to accept those arguments. This $500,000 settlement does not insulate Andrew. Finally, in the Irish Mirror, almost €350 million worth of old Irish pounds is yet to be changed into euro 2 decades after the country adopted the new currency. So get your hands down the back of those old couches. There could be €350 million down there. Households first began grappling with the novel coins and banknotes on January 1st, 2002. The dual circulation period, when both the Irish pound and the euro had legal tender status, ended just 5 weeks later. Many people at the time scrambled to gather up all their old punts and bring them to the bank for conversion into the newly minted national currency. The good news is the Central Bank of Ireland continues to exchange old pound banknotes and coins with no deadline for converting old tender. So do you have any of these old notes? Well, they're worth €346 million. That's how much of it is lying around the place. So someone's sitting on a fortune somewhere, aren't they? Where is all this money? That's an awful lot of cash and coinage. I've none. I've turned the place upside down. Absolutely none of it left. Right, we're going to be getting some reaction from the teachers' unions to the determination the government and the Department of Education have in reopening schools tomorrow. But we want your views. You are the people. We are the people that are most directly affected by this, as well as teachers, of course. Are you welcoming this decision? Is it something you're concerned about? Is it the right thing to do? Do we have to just crack on with things? 086 60 25,000 WhatsApps and texts, or give us a call on 07491 25,000.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny. Want to accelerate the growth of your new business? Entrepreneurs in Derry City and Strabane District Council areas can now apply for a new Startup Accelerator programme. Eligible participants can avail of free professional support, access to incubation facilities and business grants. The programme is open to businesses who are currently on or have recently completed the Go For It programme. To apply, contact your local enterprise office, Enterprise Northwest or Strabane Enterprise Agency. This project is funded by the UK Government through the UK Community Renewal Scheme.
Have you seen that Grant Shoes Buncrana have their sale on?
Yeah, I love Grant Shoes. They're the best for comfortable shoes, amazing service, great value, and better still, Grants are local and family run.
Grant Shoes Buncrana, sale now on.
The Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale is now in full swing at our Letterkenny store, supplying only the finest quality, luxurious Irish-made beds and mattresses with genuine savings throughout our range. We look forward to seeing you at the Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at...
Now the time's 9:14. The Education Minister admits the reopening of schools will not be without challenge, to say the least. Schools are to reopen tomorrow was planned following a meeting between teachers' unions and the Department of Education, which I believe was actually held over Zoom. I wonder, was that for public health reasons? But anyway, it's despite concerns from the SDI that some schools could be missing up to 50% of their staff due to COVID-related absences. Education Minister Norma Foley says different schools will face different challenges. Well, the Assistant General Secretary of the TUI is Joanne Irwin, and Joanne joins us on the programme now. Joanne, thank you very much. I suppose, you know, the mood music going into that meeting was that schools were going to open by hook or by crook, to borrow a turn of phrase from a previous discussion in a previous lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and in fairness, I think all of the stakeholders who were there, you know, the priority would be that schools would open. I think it's going to be very, very challenging. I think tomorrow we're going to find a lot of schools that do not have teachers and do not have students for one reason or another. I suppose yesterday's meeting, just to say, it didn't deal with a lot of the operational issues that we had hoped that it would deal with. So there are further meetings this morning and this afternoon, and we are expecting by 4:00 this afternoon a very detailed document just in relation to the whole area of antigen tests, PCR tests, face masks and all of that. We don't have that level of detail yet. So yesterday was really the decision that schools were going to open, whatever open will look like tomorrow, but it will go ahead with an open tomorrow.
And before we get into sort of the technical side of things, well, first and foremost, it's hard to believe that we're so far into this, and yet we are still in a situation whereby I think primarily principals will be finding out information, you know, just a few short hours before reopening. I mean, we knew pretty much, I would say, probably early second week of December that opening early January was going to be a great challenge. Why are we again doing this at the very last minute?
I 100% agree, and I think it's been the history of this pandemic that everything has been decided last minute. Now, I accept that the change, the public health and the transmissibility of the disease and the numbers is changing on a daily basis, but we all knew in December that we were going to have this challenge tomorrow. And yet you're absolutely right. I mean, there are schools today that are going to be trying, they will only find out maybe at 5 or 6 o'clock this evening what teachers they have tomorrow. They will then try and get substitute teachers. They will then, if they can't get substitute teachers, will have to make a decision of who's in and who's not in. And it is all very last minute. We have been arguing about this and we have been discussing it with the department even like over Christmas and over New Year. But there seems to be the delay. Well, wait and see what public health say. And then yesterday, public health made the decision that it was, I don't want to use the word safe because nowhere's safe, but they saw that there was no additional reason why schools should not reopen tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there probably is a logic to that in that. And I think if you read between the lines, and maybe you don't have to from the CMO, they're all going to get it. Be it at home or at school, they're all going to get it anyway. That's. I mean, I don't even know if that's a cynical sort of read on the comments, but that's what I was reading.
Well, certainly now. I mean, even in the last few days, members that have contacted us. I mean, everybody now really has a family member who has it, which never was the case before. You knew somebody who may have it. Now there are families that are completely locked down over Christmas, and families who who made the decision not to mix because they wanted schools to reopen. Those who have been protecting themselves and their families over Christmas and are now very, very apprehensive. We have members who contacted us yesterday, very concerned. They're medically vulnerable themselves. They live with family members who are medically vulnerable. They haven't left their homes over Christmas for fear of it. I mean, the figures we're getting on a daily basis, on a personal view, isn't half of what's out there, because I was one of those people who was sitting at midnight trying to get a PCR test in Letterkenny for 4 days in a row before I could get one. Mm-hmm. And then we also had members who, for example, had the single shot vaccine who had to wait really until last week to get the booster because they were in the age category of 18 to 39. So there definitely is apprehensive, or members are apprehensive. But I have to say there are also members who are contacting us with very polarized views. There are some who absolutely want to go back, not under any measures. They obviously want the mitigation measures, and there are those who don't want to go back.
Well, it's obviously going to feed into your general perception of what we're living here. If it doesn't matter whether you're a teacher or a doctor or a journalist or whatever it is if you think, right, enough is enough, let's crack on with this, we have to live our lives, well, that's going to be your opinion regardless of what your your job is. But just in relation to your views on the education minister, though, you know, she leans very much on public health. You know, I know one of the big talking points yesterday was as it relates to mask wearing, you know, the type of masks. And again, you know, our answer will be continually, will public health say currently, and they've said it over and over again, that the current masks that children are wearing are adequate. And, you know, they will look at it again, but the same answer is going to come back. You know, do you think that Education Minister should listen more to unions and less to public health? You know, do you think that she should digress or divert or whatever the word is from the public health advice if it's coming very strongly from teachers' unions?
Well, I think first and foremost, we all have to listen, I suppose, to the public health advice. And the public health advice yesterday in relation to the mask is that the masks that we're currently wearing are sufficient. But that's not what we're hearing internationally. I mean, schools in Canada, for example, have now said everybody must wear the N95 or the FFP2, whatever they're called, the higher standard of masks. And I think if there's that level of concern among the school community, among staff and among teachers, okay, maybe not for medical reasons, she should make the decision, but she should certainly make the decision to alleviate the concerns and fears of her staff, of which there are up to 100,000 going back to school tomorrow. So, you can base decisions on medical health advice, or you can go beyond it. There's no harm in going beyond it. We would obviously be saying don't do less than the medical health advice. But I think, if she really wants to ensure that staff are more comfortable, which is probably not even the right word to say, to go back tomorrow, she should make that decision.
What could be sent out at 4:00 today as it relates to antigen testing? Is it antigen testing going into school, or is that how you might handle suspected cases within the schools? Like, what are the unions looking for as it relates to antigen testing?
Well, I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, in Northern Ireland, and I know because I have family who work in schools in the north, they're given antigen tests. They're given a box of antigen tests every Monday, and they must do 2 tests that week. And I think that's a safe and a fair way of doing it. And they're monitoring every day. If you work, and I have family who work in this area as well, with the children with additional needs or special needs, my sister has to take an antigen test every day to ensure that she's safe to go in to what that.
So you believe students should be taking, say, 2 antigen tests per week?
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. The difficulty that we have is that we're being told by the department and by elsewhere that the supply is really, really difficult. And I know
that was really, that's the elephant in the room here. I think they have enough for about 350. The government can send out about 350,000 antigen tests a week, but they have no certainty over supply towards the end of January. So I don't really think there's enough antigen tests in this country through the government or through the retailers to sort of satisfy that request, unfortunately.
And even if you go on to the HSE website to book, if you're a close contact, to book an antigen test, I mean, I went on just to check it, and I was told, the website is down, come back at 8 o'clock tomorrow. I've never in my life heard of a website going down at 8 o'clock in the evening, in this day and age. So I think that's going to be a problem. Now, certainly the view from public health is that, this will peak, in the next week or so, and maybe come February we mightn't need as many. But I think every measure that we can put in place should be put in place now.
Yeah, stay with us if you don't mind, Joanne, because it's not going to be, some principals will probably have a full cohort of staff tomorrow. Others could be down, 50%. We don't know. It's going to vary from school to school. We'll come back to Joanne in a moment. I want to say good morning, though, first to John Harn, who's principal at St. Bernadette's Special School in Letterkenny. John, are you welcoming this decision from the Education Minister?
It's hard to know, Greg. I suppose we all want to see the children back in school, and it's the best place for them, and it's the best place for teachers, because we had our fill of remote learning last year, and it wasn't fun. It was very hard on everyone, and especially the students, and especially our students with additional needs. So I welcome the fact that we are opening, Greg, and the children will be in front of us tomorrow morning, because that's where we want them to be, and that's where the teachers want them to be. I suppose the problem is, Greg, that there's going to be a lot of teachers and a lot of parents that are going to be very anxious about it, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the practicalities of open, John, I don't know how many staff you have, but are you hoping all will be able to return tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we have 11 teachers, Greg, and we have 17 SNAs and a few other, secretaries and a few things like that, caretaker. So far we're looking very good, Greg, thankfully. Now, but
very good.
As Joanne says earlier in your piece, that could change at any time today, where 2 or 3 teachers could contact me or SNA to say that they're a close contact or they've got symptoms, and next thing you're rushing trying to get subs. And as I said to Caroline before it came on, Greg, there's a WhatsApp group in Donegal for subs, for principals to put up on the WhatsApp group that they're looking for a sub, and that group, the messages started pinging on Monday evening when principals started putting up looking for a teacher for Thursday and Friday and next week.
Because, of course, obviously, they may have already committed, or they could themselves be isolating.
Yeah, well, obviously, they had teachers contact them at that stage from Monday night onwards, and since then, Greg, that WhatsApp group has just been the messages have just been flying in, and it's the same schools still looking for subs. Some of the big schools around Letterkenny looking for 3 and 4 subs for Thursday and Friday.
The Education Minister said that student teachers will be made available. That's not much use for us up here, I'd imagine.
Well, it's not much great because I had a couple of students subbing with me in St Bernard's before Christmas, and they were excellent. And I got on to one of them just to see what her situation was for Thursday and Friday and next week if I needed them, because I thought, surely we'll need someone somewhere. And she came back to me to say that she was to do her placement in Dublin after Christmas, and she's been told by the college in Dublin that she has to go to her school in Dublin where she was to do placement and be available to sub in that school. So that's, I think that's a wee bit unfair, especially you said, for the schools in Donegal, because she's a local girl from Letterkenny, but she's obviously doing her teacher training both here in Dublin, and now she has to go back to Dublin, so she's not much good to the schools around Letterkenny. But
so, John, in a nutshell, from your perspective, things are looking okay for tomorrow, and fingers crossed. There is always going to be uncertainty. We simply don't know. We just have to.
We don't know, Greg. Like as I said, if I got two messages today from 2 teachers that said that they couldn't come in tomorrow, like I know from that WhatsApp group and my own list of subs that they're all booked up. So where do I get 2 subs tomorrow morning? And our children, as I said to you before, Greg, on this show a few times, like our children come from all over Donegal on buses. Most of them are on buses before 8 o'clock in the morning, coming to Letterkenny for 9. So, I can't pick up the phone and start ringing around parents and telling them to keep their children home. Them children are going to come to school tomorrow, and whether I have a teacher for them or not in their classroom, I don't know. It could be just left up to, another teacher supervising 2 classes and the SNAs in that class, which are brilliant in our school, having to, take on the mantle of caring for them children, which they do brilliantly, but, there mightn't be a teacher in front of them children. That's the reality.
John, do you feel you're getting enough support from the Department of Education on this?
Not really, Greg. I don't think so. Like I heard Norma Foley there, I think in Morning Ireland just this morning, saying that, that the priority of, that it should be a kind of a scale where, special schools and classes with ASD units and additional needs, they should be getting priority. But like, where is that? Like, there's no one saying that, subs that are available should be going into special schools first and ASD units, and special classes rather than just going into mainstream classes.
It sounds good, but when you actually work in the sector and when it has to be applied, it actually really it's just words. Words.
Yeah, just words. Exactly, Greg. It's just words. There's nothing behind it.
I got that impression myself as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I think it comes to a point where presenters are going to have to stop cutting interviews short if there aren't actually answers being given, and have a bit of respect for the listeners, because.
Yeah.
Okay, John, listen, the best of luck.
Thanks, Greg.
I can't believe we're saying about luck and something like this, but you know what I mean. I mean it with the very best of intentions. Thanks, John, as always.
Thanks.
John Harron, Principal of St Bernadette's Special School, Letterkenny. So, Joanne Irwin, from your members' perspective, who calls the shots? Who decides whether a class is not called in or sent home or whatever? Because, again, listening to the same interview that John listened to this morning, that question was simply not answered, and it was asked 3 times, and there was no answer from the Education Minister that I could hear.
Yeah, and look, certainly from our view, post-primary, maybe somewhat different in primary, but I mean, schools are the employers, not the Department of Education, and schools have a legal obligation under the law, under health and safety legislation, to provide a duty of care to their staff and students. So we have got a commitment that schools at post-primary level will have the professional judgment on a daily basis to decide, based on what teachers are out or what number of teachers are out, who's in and who's not in. Now, it's not really straightforward to say we want exam classes in, because that may not necessarily be the teachers that you have in. So, I mean, it's a very, very difficult time ahead for principals, for boards of management, for ETBs, because they're going to have to make decisions and support each other in making those decisions.
I mean, are we not at the point now, Joanne, that this is tough for all of us? This is tough for Highland Radio here. Obviously there's going to be staff who can't make it in. It's tough for bars and restaurants that are having to close because they can't have the staff. It's going to be tough. And you guys in education are going to have to do what the rest of us are going to have to do. And we're going to have to just find a way to get through, hopefully, this particular wave and in through the spring and hopefully on to better times. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, look, I agree fully with what you have said. And in fairness to schools, since the pandemic started, that's what they've been doing on a daily basis, muddling through. The problem we had, though, was before Christmas, if a school did send home a class or a year group or whatever it may be, they would be in contact with the Department of Education, say, open up again, you don't have the authority to do that. That has now gone.
Are you sure?
Well, it's gone for post-primary. I'm not sure what the
No, it's just, again, going back to that Norma Foley interview, she had an opportunity to make that really clear that these would be autonomous decisions, and she said, well, it will be done in, I think you can paraphrase to say, it'll be done in sort of consultation with a Department of Education official. That's the impression I got from what she said.
Yeah, and I think that is the case in primary, where they will have to contact the inspectorate. Now, obviously, schools will have to go through a number of steps. They won't just decide, okay, I have 5 teachers out, I'm going to send a year group home. They will have to try and source substitute teachers. But even if we forget about COVID for a second, which has been very hard to do for the last 2 years, if it, for whatever reason, be it weather or be it whatever, there are 5, 6, 7, 8 teachers out, a school can't open on health and safety grounds. You cannot leave students unsupervised, irrespective. So schools and boards need to come back to the legislation, irrespective of what the departments say.
All right, but it'll be at least 4 o'clock before principals get sight of these operational guidelines.
Yeah, one thing now that I can confirm that we did get yesterday was it was muted a lot, I suppose, and the media was the place where we heard it, that teachers and school staff would receive a derogation to the COVID leave measures, same as what's happening in healthcare. It's been confirmed that won't happen. So whatever measures are in place across the sector, and in post-primary we will have the track and trace and the contact tracing. They won't, I think, in primary, but we will have it in post-primary level.
Okay.
But look, it's an uncertain time. Members are absolutely concerned, and we are relying on the employers here to ensure the health and safety of everyone.
Thank you very much, as always. Joanne Irwin there, who is Assistant General Secretary of the Teachers Union of Ireland. We're going to be speaking to parents, representatives and representatives from students after we take this break. So please stay with us.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
Homeland Fuel offers, keeping you warm for less. 40 kg premium doubles or easy flame coal, $16.99. Buy 10, get 1 free. 1 kg fire logs, 4 for €5. 12-pack wood briquettes, buy 2 for €10. Shop in store or online at homeland.ie.
McElhinney's biggest ever winter sale is now on, with offers like never seen before on your favourite designer brands. But better hurry, when they're gone, with up to 50% off in our women's, men's, kids, jewellery, home and footwear departments. Plus enjoy a great sterling exchange, where £1 buys you €1.20. So go get what's yours at McElhinney's Ballybuffet or McElhinney's.com.
At Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms, we are now operating out of one new state-of-the-art showroom in Donegal Town. And we invite you to visit our new 5,000 square foot Donegal Town showroom to discover the latest eye-catching designs. Remember, at Cherrymore, you're dealing directly with the manufacturer, which means high-quality kitchens at factory prices. Start planning your dream kitchen or bedroom by calling Cherrymore on 074 9725 822. Cherrymore, 25 years delivering value, quality and service all over Ireland.
Sheridan Security, now introducing Zero Wire Smart Alarm Systems. Zero wire, zero mess and a real peace of mind. With a simple press of a button, your alarm can be set or unset, or download the free app and control it from your phone. Call us today on 074 912 6025 and get your alarm from €299. Stay local, stay safe and protect what you value most with Sheridan Security Systems.
Okay, so Jill Holtz is founder of parentsandbrands.com and joins us on the programme now. Thanks for taking the call this morning, Jill.
Morning, Greg.
Right, now, you have been in touch with parents. Your organisation have been in touch with parents and surveying them as to what they want as it relates. And I think, as I said to an earlier guest there before you joined us, I think a lot of people's opinions, whether they're parents, guardians, or in fact teachers, what they want to see happen kind of depends on their attitude to the pandemic to some extent. Are you getting that feeling?
Yes, well, we do research every month with parents, and so over the Christmas period we asked them where they were at with the topic of schools going back, and it's definitely been a hot topic because yourself, even pre-pandemic, it's a juggle between work and school. So parents really came back and said they do want schools to reopen. That was kind of the overwhelming feedback.
70%, which is not
Yes.
insignificant. Yeah, that's...
No, 40% of them were sort of blanket, yes, I want them to reopen. So the further 30% were saying, well, I have reservations, but I feel they should. And it was only just under a quarter that said no, they didn't think they should reopen at this point. And I mean, I suppose that the ones who are saying to reopen are still saying so under caution, and kind of the main concerns they have, top of the list, is safety. The kids not yet being vaccinated. But really beyond that, it comes down to things like that they struggled with the whole homeschooling before. You know, parents really had a hard time with that. Mental health issues, the importance of education, the importance of routine for kids. They felt that they've had just 2 years of disruption. And really it was interesting that only 13% of parents that we surveyed, which was just over 400 parents, by the way, only 13% said, oh, it's time we learn to live with this. So
life has to go on effectively, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of mixed feelings really over
And I think an important proportion of those, and maybe, you know, maybe they do get a voice, I'm not sure, is 20%, one in five, isn't it? Nervous or scared, you know. So that's tough on that group of parents, because they're sending their most precious things out, and they're nervous and scared about them or themselves or those living with them. You know, I mean, maybe the likes of the government or whatever, or the schools need to issue some advice or help and support to them, or reassurance to them.
Yes, and I think, you know, that really came across in some of the quotes that we had, which were saying things like, yes, kids need their education, but I'm really nervous about my son. I'm very, very anxious about sending them to school. But then they've missed so much schooling, and I think their mental health has suffered. So, they again, just really came across strongly as mixed feelings on parents. They want schools to reopen. They want that routine and education for their children, but they're very nervous overall.
Yeah, all right. Listen, thanks for that. Very interesting indeed. Jill Holtz there, who is from Parents and Brand, that conducted that survey. The key findings, as we just mentioned there, 70% of parents want their children back at school. That's across all schools. That's 7 out of 10. There's a mixture in there with, you know, right, just get on with it, and others only if things feel safe. 21% would prefer to wait until their child is vaccinated. A huge uptake, I believe, anyway, in parents registering their young ones, the very young ones, for a vaccine. But anyway, parents feel education and routine are important and are reluctant to see this upset. And one other key point, many parents report being nervous or scared and would like to see the numbers fall before they feel comfortable. But you could be always on the brink of something along those lines, though, couldn't you? Right, Emer Neville is president of the Irish Second Level Students' Union. And, you know, Emer, again, and we've had this conversation with reps from students in the past, be it about exams or be it about reopening or closures or whatever it might be. And we're talking about yous again and not to yous. I don't know how much consultation was had with students on any of this decision making. Perhaps you can inform us, how much do you believe students have been consulted in this process?
Well, we believe that students weren't consulted on this at all. We met with stakeholders last night, but rather than having a consultation, we were briefed on the plan to reopen schools, which was very disappointing because students weren't able to voice their opinions really on the schools reopening, but just ask questions. And this comes as quite a surprise to us and other stakeholders, because there was and has always been a very productive and close relationship between the wider pool of stakeholders with the department in recent months as a response to the challenges that the pandemic has brought to education. But unfortunately, there was just no consultation on this decision. Right,
so you're just told you have to wear a mask, you're told you have to get on a 100% packed bus, you're told that you have to sit in a classroom with windows open. And I'm not saying any of those things are right or wrong, that's not the commentary. I'm just saying you're just told that's the way it is, get on with it.
Yeah, it's what public health have recommended. The schools can reopen, but that's not how students feel at all, and it's not how a lot of teachers feel and other people in the school community. As we've seen, a lot of stakeholders actually have the same stance, and that's a phased return to school, not an immediate return to school.
So how would that, from an Irish Second Level Students' Union perspective, how would a phased return to school look like? And we're talking post-primary here, presumably.
Yeah, so we were advocating for a phased return starting from Monday, January 10th. And this would prioritise in-person tuition for exam year students and students with special educational needs. So they would return first on Monday, and then following them, all other year groups would return in a phased approach. So 5th years, 2nd years, TYs, first year, however way you could put it. There are multiple different ways it could have been done, but I suppose the great part of it is.
And I suppose maybe they're concerned it will delay the peak, and that's all part of what we're doing here. I mean, I just find it ironic that we have conversations at least once or twice a year about, should 16-year-olds get the vote, and voting on elections and stuff, and yet we don't even consult with them or get their views, whether we like them or not, or whether they're sort of taken on board or not. Often these decisions have to be made in the round, but I think we should at least show particularly second-level students some respect and speak to them in advance of decision-making.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when an issue is completely, really only going to affect them, students and teachers and all of those working in the school communities, this issue affects their lives and those around them as well. And to make a decision without consulting them is very, very rash.
But what are the students' concerns, Emer? Because thankfully, the one saving grace from this pandemic, and it's not exclusive, of course, is that, young people generally don't get very sick from it. I think there's a consensus there in that regard. So why are your union members sort of against a full return to school at this time? What are you and your fellow students' concerns is really the question.
Well, so the first part is that students don't feel safe going to school. They don't feel that the adequate measures are in place to protect them, because, they mightn't get sick from the virus, but they could bring that virus home, and seriously ill family members could get sick, anyone with underlying conditions, or even just, say, a parent. And we don't know how the virus will affect those people, and it could put their lives at risk as well. So while only the students will be in school, it does affect the wider community as well, giving such a quick return with so little regard to how the stakeholders in the actual building feel.
All right, okay. Well, the decision has been made, and you said you were effectively told about it last night. We've made this decision. This is what you're going to have to comply with.
Yeah, there was. It was our understanding that there was going to be a consultation, but that was not the case. It was a briefing on the matter, and again, we were very disappointed, as were other stakeholders. And we're hoping to remedy this now, and we're calling for a meeting between all stakeholders in education that is open and solution oriented, to minimise the disruption that has been put on learning and teaching, and we're calling for a phased return to school in this. Yeah,
it must be a bit frustrating, when it's generally accepted good ventilation is one of the biggest and purifying of air is one of the biggest advantages we can have against this virus, and you hear the likes of the education minister and others saying there are mitigations in place in classrooms and students are safe, and yet there aren't HEPA filters really, and there are maybe one CO2 monitor per 2 or 3 classrooms. Like, you're in there, actually what's going on, and then you hear this other conversation happening as if that's the reality. It must be very frustrating.
It is very frustrating, and students are worried and they're concerned because they know that there are not adequate measures in place in schools, and they've lost their trust in the schools to a place where they do not feel protected.
All right, listen, Emer, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it. That's Emer Neville, who's president of the Irish Second Level Students' Union. Okay, so it's over to you now to have your Say If You Wish, 086 60 25,000, your WhatsApps and texts, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000.
Is 2022 the year you need to change your mattress? Restex Beds Letterkenny, the massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure has everything you need to gear up for the GAA season this year. Get your hands on the brand new Donegal GAA home jersey, available in men's, ladies and kids, or gear up the whole family for pre-season and match days with the new Harlem range of sweaters, leggings and snoods at michaelmurphysports.ie.
The TUI Live Happy sale is here, with thousands of free child places this summer. Splashing, sorted. Savings of up to €250 per booking, plus low booking deposits, and the TUI Holiday Promise for complete peace of mind. Here, we come. So relax and get booking. TUI, live happy. Offer T's and C's apply.
From the smallest shrub to the largest tree in an awkward place, Donnelly Tree Services provide a complete range of tree surgery services. Whether you need to remove a dangerous tree or some nuisance branches, Donnelly Tree Services have the experience and expertise to carry out tree surgery to the highest of professional standards. Call 083 005 9939. Donnelly Tree Services, Donegal. No job is too small, no tree is too tall.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, 1 in 4 people who appear in court nationwide for using their mobile phone while driving are being convicted, so 3 out of 4 aren't. New data seen by the Irish Times shows a quarter of convictions out of 15,000 such cases between 2018 and 2020. Rates range from as low as 14% in County Sligo to 36% in County Wicklow. Now, Michael Harrison is a former inspector in road policing in Donegal. Michael Harrison, he joins us on the programme now. Michael, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us this morning. I appreciate it.
Good morning, Greg. Happy New Year to you.
And Happy New Year to you and Michael. Right, so I don't understand how this could be. I thought once you get to court, something like this, case closed, fair cop, bang on the cuffs. Clearly it's not the case.
No, well, we do live in a country, Greg, that has a constitution which allows you to challenge evidence that's brought against you by the police force or the state. And like on a personal level, that is a very, very good thing. I wouldn't like to live in any jurisdiction where it would accept the word of any police force, without challenging it. But road traffic legislation is the most challenged legislation on our books. I was in the car yesterday and I was listening to a politician talking about the new average speed cameras on the M7. And he said that it's not rocket science. And I remember saying to myself, my God, it is rocket science. Rocket science was easier. If you were to ask a legislator in the Department of Transport, would he change places with a rocket scientist? I'm sure he would, because it is very, very difficult legislation to get completely right. And the fact that 25% of people are getting off on road traffic, it's not bad. There's several reasons why it could happen, but it's.
Well, what is? I mean, listen, the cat's out of the bag. We're not giving anyone ideas, I don't think, but because their legal teams are working on their behalf. But what kind of defences are being put forward then that means we have a conviction rate so low of just just a quarter convicted?
Well, it could be anything. There was. There's an article on the internet that was published in the Law Gazette back in 2019, and the figures are much the same. And the reasons offered then were that it could be the guard might fail to appear in court. There could be procedural error. The guard might be given his evidence. He might give the wrong registration number of the vehicle. The guard has to be literally a walking dictionary when he's given his evidence in court. And this is very, very difficult. Mistakes can be made. It might be the wrong person might be prosecuted. There's so many different reasons that we would be here all day talking about them.
So does this all come back again to our occasional conversations, and I'm sure that the ones you have more regularly when we talk about the Road Traffic Bill or Act, that it needs an overhaul, really? It needs complete from top to bottom looked at.
Yeah, that is something that was, I think it was one of the ministers, I can't think of his name, but it was mentioned quite a number of years ago that the road traffic legislation that it needed a complete overhaul. There have been so many amendments on top of amendments, particularly with regards to drink driving legislation and the road traffic legislation. It just needs completely, okay, let's start from scratch again. I don't know whether they were working on it. They said they were going to start working on it. That it was going to take a number of years, but it certainly does need an overhaul. It needs to be simplified. It needs to be made easier. We've had 133 people died on our roads last year, but that's 133 families that have been affected by that, and that's the reality of
this.
But
we talk about often why the message isn't getting through. As it relates to road safety and what have you. Do you think maybe something that seems like a sieve, this legislation, that seems like a sieve, does that undermine, do you think, the safety message? Could that be one of the reasons why, we hear from frustration from the Gardaí, from those in road safety, that the message just doesn't seem to be getting through?
Yeah, we discussed about how we could reduce the road safety before Christmas, Greg. And I said to you that at the time that roads policing at the time, it will always has its place. It is kind of the bedrock of saving people's lives on this road. And if that has been eroded by measures where people can get off on prosecutions in court, certainly that will affect the morale of the people who are prosecuting, because they will say, well, what's the point of me doing this if they're just going to walk into court and get off? It does need, as I said, it does need something to be addressed, because it is the bedrock of saving people's lives in this country.
And I suppose as things stand, we are going to be having these conversations annually, depending on which set of figures a newspaper or we ourselves happen to focus on. This is not going to change, because the atmosphere in which we are found to have done this and then convicted of doing so, that's not changing. So presumably nothing changes until everything changes.
No, there's nothing. People are going to continue, to challenge road traffic legislation. It is one of these pieces, like they would sooner, like murder convictions or murder cases, drug possession of drugs cases. They're not half the far more impact on people on an individual than a road traffic prosecution. But for some reason, the road traffic legislation is challenged, and it is the only thing that can make people think. It is the main thing which can make people think about driving safely is this fear of prosecution, and if that is undermined here in Ireland, it's not good. It's something that needs to be addressed really and truly.
And do you get any sense of an appetite for that? And I don't mean from the likes of yourself, who speak from a very informed position, or the likes of, say, Susan Gray with the Park Group and others. I mean, obviously they. But, I mean, do you think there's any political or legal appetite to actually overhaul this the way it might need to be done?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I honestly don't think there is. It's a can of worms. It's a lose-lose situation for any politician. No politician wants to be associated with legislation that is going to make people's lives a mystery. There are a number of TDs that challenge, that ask questions and all air, but they're all, for the main part, they're all independent TDs. You had Tommy Brune in the last stall. He was constantly knocking on the door of the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Justice, but it's no politician wants to be associated with it.
And all that stuff that he would have revealed, I mean, it made the news, maybe page 3 or 4, but in reality, if we were serious about road safety, that would be so scandalous that the government would have to do something about it.
Oh yeah,
some of the details were so like, seriously, is this how we operate?
From a risk management point of view, if somebody was to show you a risk in a company, and they were saying, listen, you're doing this work, but 25% of the time you're not being successful in doing this, well, automatically you would address that risk and try to mitigate it to stop it happening. But back in 2019, this conversation was being had at this time of the year, but in an article in the Law Gazette, and Tommy Brune at that time was referring to figures from 2017 to 2018. So nothing has changed. The department, they will weather this storm. They'll get over it and say, okay, we'll discuss it again next year.
Yeah, a caller says, I travel 35 to 45,000 miles a year around Ireland for my job. Prior to the lockdown and since it ended, I've never been stopped at a checkpoint. This is the biggest problem in Ireland. But at the end of the day, we're talking about people that were seen by Gardaí or stopped by Gardaí that actually ended up contesting what was said, going to court, and only a quarter of them finding themselves being convicted. So, maybe our listener has a point. You don't see an awful lot of checkpoints around. I think anyone who's on the road a lot might agree with that. But that's not the point in this one. These are people that have been at least suspected of doing wrong, have been brought before the court, but 3 out of 4 of them get off.
That's the truth. And for, going back to my earlier point of, the type of country we live in, it is very, very good that you can challenge the evidence that's been taken against you but where it is kind of on all fours, like road traffic legislation, like a scientific piece of equipment that said that you're drunk. The observation of a guard has shown that you were using your mobile phone at the time. I cannot see why these pieces of legislation, speeding detection, why it needs to be challenged just to the level of extent that it is challenged in the superior courts.
All right, listen, thank you very much indeed for that. That was former Garda Inspector Michael Harrison. And of course, a lot of people would say, well, we have to have that protection, that we can't have decisions being made or being handed out based purely on what another person sees, although they're a guard, I'm not a big fan of extra laws or anything, by the way, but just have to tease things out there with former Inspector Harrison. Hi, Greg. I'm thinking of travelling from Northern Ireland to the UK, Britain, for a weekend in April, but I'm not vaccinated. Do you know if you need to be vaccinated? And can you get the PCR test you pay for before you leave on either side? Thank you. I don't think there's any need travelling within, whether one might like it or not, the UK, which you would be doing from Northern Ireland to England, say, for example, or Scotland. I don't think there is any, and I'm open to correction on this from anyone out there, I don't think you need to provide any evidence because you're in the one area for the purpose of that conversation. So if you're travelling from Northern Ireland to Britain, I don't think you need any proof of anything. But as I say, the airlines might seek it, or maybe you're going by boat. I don't know. Tell us how you're looking to go over there, and I can dig a little bit further and try and find out for you. Hi, Greg. The only reason there are so many teachers off is because they're getting their full pay, and it's the same across the board. Thank you. Another, have not seen a postman in the last few days, so asked my friend, as he's a postman. He said they're only delivering scanned parcels, as so many are out sick. So God help anyone waiting on a letter or a hospital appointment. I wouldn't take that as across the board, by the way. That's one person, what they've heard and their experience, just in case there are people waiting an important letter and think that that's the reason. I don't know. What we will do is we'll put a call into An Post and find out if that's the case and how widespread. Now, I'm not questioning a listener for a moment, but they've heard it from another person, and we just would need to clarify further. I work in retail, and I'm sick of listening to these pampered teachers, roll down staff. I think that was kind of the final point I made to Joanne. But they say our shop never closed once. We all had to accept doing more than double our workload because other staff are out. Not only will half the teachers be out, so will students. I'd like to see a little more willingness to manage and a little less complaining from the pampered cohort. Right, keep your calls and comments coming into us, of course. It's 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 07491 25,000. It is the 9 till noon show. Lots coming up in the programme, including a conversation with Sean Murphy, the General Manager of Letterkenny University Hospital. I'll find out for you exactly what the situation is there. At least I will endeavour to do so. So stay tuned. Coming up now, it's Michaela with the news and obituary notices after the short break.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show:
Milford Tiles and Wood Flooring, Milford Retail Park. January sale is now on. Get 15% off everything in store. 15% off tiles, bathware, wood flooring, adhesives and grout. Yes, you heard right. 15% off everything in store for 2 weeks only. Milford Tiles and Wood Flooring, 083 0910 707.
Get 5% off VHI First Care plans and unlock a wide range of healthcare services when you buy online and start your policy between November 25th, 2021 and March 31st, 2022. Search VHI 5% to join today. Terms and conditions apply. VHI Healthcare DAC trading as VHI Healthcare is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Hello, Grace. Where are you heading?
Down to Made to Measure Fireplaces in Creasla.
Made to Measure Fireplaces? Didn't you just buy a fireplace there?
Yeah, but I'm going now to pick my kitchen worktop.
Create the kitchen and living room of your dreams at Made to Measure Fireplaces and Granite Worktops. They've been in business for over 40 years, so for help choosing granite or quartz for your worktop, fireplace or stove, visit the Made to Measure showroom at Cashel Creasla or see mtmfireplaces.com or on Facebook.
A public interest message from Donegal County Council. Attention farmers. Donegal County Council would like to remind farmers of the importance of good agricultural practice in protecting watercourses over the wet winter period. Make sure soiled water from yards, roadways or the poaching of land doesn't enter waters, and try to keep out wintered stock from entering streams and rivers. Fix any broken gutters and downpipes to keep clean roof water off dirty yards. Locate supplementary feeding points at least 20 metres from waters and not on bare rock. We all need to play our part in making Donegal a clean environment which is good for all. Donegal County Council, protecting the environment.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. One school in Donegal is already without 7 teachers before it reopens tomorrow due to the impact of COVID-19. Absences in schools across the county and nationwide are expected to increase drastically by the end of the week. The Education Minister admits the reopening of schools will not be without challenge, but has given the go-ahead for them to reopen following a meeting between teaching unions and the Department of Education yesterday. Further talks are to take place today to outline operational guidelines. Joanne Irwin, Assistant General Secretary of the TUI, told the 9 till noon show that the majority of teachers are apprehensive about returning to work tomorrow.
We have members who contacted us yesterday very concerned. They're medically vulnerable themselves. They live with family members who are medically vulnerable. They haven't left their homes over Christmas for fear of it. I mean, the figures we're getting on a daily basis, on a personal view, isn't half of what's out there, because I was one of those people who was sitting at midnight trying to get a PCR test in Letterkenny for 4 days in a row. Members are apprehensive, but I have to say there are also members who are contacting us with very polarised views. There are some who absolutely want to go back, and there are those who don't want to go back.
John Harn, principal of St Bernadette Special School in Letterkenny, meanwhile, says they are dealing with an ever-evolving situation.
We have 11 teachers and we have 17 SNAs and a few other secretaries and a few things like that, caretaker. So far we're looking very good, thankfully now, but that could change at any time today, where 2 or 3 teachers could contact me or SNA to say that they're a close contact or they've got symptoms, and next thing you're rushing trying to get subs. And there's a WhatsApp group in Donegal for subs. That group, just the messages started pinging on Monday evening.
The Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation is calling for elective procedures in hospitals to be cancelled for the entire month. HSE CEO Paul Reid has told hospitals to prioritise urgent and COVID-19 care for the next fortnight and to scale back elective procedures. It's due to the pressure on the health system because of the Omicron variant. 884 people are in hospital with COVID-19 and 90 are in ICU. Letterkenny University Hospital is currently dealing with 56 infectious cases. INMO General Secretary Phil Hay says elective procedures must be delayed.
This is not going to be gone in 2 weeks. We believe that all of the elective work must be curtailed until the end of January to give our healthcare workforce some chance of dealing with what they're facing in a safe manner, safe for them, but also safe for those that they're trying to provide some level of good care to.
A Donegal councillor says he will be urging the authority to liaise with the HSE and others to assess how the fire service in the county can assist the ambulance service. Yesterday, Deputy Padraig McLaughlin said he'd been told by the National Ambulance Service that it would welcome backup from the fire service personnel, particularly in cases of cardiac issues. In November, Councillor Michael McClafferty asked the council to explore such an option, but officials pointed out that the service is not resourced to provide medical backup, and to do so could compromise its core functions. Councillor McClafferty has confirmed he will be raising the issue again, saying the council, HSE and government should work together to address the issue of resources.
In fairness, although the reply I got was less than positive, they did leave room for talking about it again. Welcome very much what Deputy Padraig McLaughlin's achieved there at the minute now. We're getting a positive response itself, at least from the ambulance crew itself. This is going to have to go back to the council now again, try and get resources and so on, and then there's something that I will be looking to bring back to the table now again as soon as possible.
Community groups in Donegal are being invited to apply for grants under the latest Communities Activities Fund announced this week by the Department of Rural and Community Affairs. The money, which will be allocated to groups in disadvantaged areas, can cover either capital expenditure or running costs. Donald Kavanagh has more.
Minister Heather Humphreys launched the fund this week with a national allocation of €9 million. It's intended to support community and voluntary groups in disadvantaged areas, with small grants of up to €1,500 available for running costs such as utilities and insurance, and large grants of up to €10,000 available to carry out necessary repairs and improvements to facilities or to purchase new equipment. Councillor Niamh Kennedy chairs Donegal Local Community Development Committee. She's encouraging all community and voluntary groups in the county to apply, saying the committee acknowledges the difficulties that groups have faced in meeting their running expenses throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The closing date for the receipt of applications to the scheme is 3 p.m. on Thursday, 24th of February, with more details and links to the application form available on our website, highlandradio.com.
Weather now, it will be a mostly dry day with some sunny spells, but there will be a few isolated showers with highest temperatures today of 3 to 6 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notice is for this Wednesday morning, January the 5th. The death has taken place of James Breslin, Carrick McQuigley, Redcastle. James's remains will repose at the home of his son James and daughter-in-law Tina, Carrick McQuigley, from 3 o'clock this afternoon. Funeral Mass will take place on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock in St Columbus Church Strong, followed by burial in the adjoining graveyard. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on MCN Media. The death has taken place of Maureen McGrory, St Finian's Park, Moville. Maureen's remains will repose at the home of her daughter Grania in Ballynally, Moville. Family time please from 10 p.m. until 12 noon, with family only on the morning of the funeral please. Maureen's funeral mass will take place on Friday morning at 11 o'clock in St Pius X Church, Moville, followed by burial in Ballybrack Graveyard. Funeral mass can be viewed live on the parish webcam. Donations in lieu of flowers please to the Donegal Hospice at care of any family member. The death has taken place of Mary Boyle, née Doherty, Ard Connell, Ardra, and formerly Altnagapple, Ardra. Remains reposing at Chauvelin's Funeral Home, Sandfield, today from 12 until 2 o'clock, followed by removal to her late residence in Ard Connell, travelling via the Wood Road, Mean Tinnadee, Altnagapple, and Killybegs Road to repose overnight. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 11:30 to the Church of the Holy Family, Ardra, for 12 noon funeral mass, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu of desire to Charlie Bennett Memorial Fund, care of Seamus Chauvelin and Sons at Funeral Directors. The death has occurred of Teresa Crilly, née Quinn, 5 Ahaloher Road, Killeter, Castlederg. Requiem Mass will be celebrated on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock in St Patrick's Church, Ahiarn. Interment afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. The Mass can be viewed via the parish webcam. The house is private to the immediate family and close friends. The death has taken place of Seamus Doherty, Dobbs, 25 at Castle Park, Buncrana. Removal from his residence on Friday afternoon at 1:20, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, for 2 o'clock Requiem Mass, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. The house is private to family and friends only please. Funeral service can be viewed online at churchservices.tv. Family flowers only please. Donations if desired to Cash on the Core, care of any family member. The tragic death has occurred of Dara Conlon, Leibgarrow, Armore Island. His remains are reposing at his late residence, which is strictly private to family, close friends and school friends please. Funeral will take place on Friday in St Cronus Church, Armore Island at 11 o'clock, followed by burial in the adjoining graveyard. The death has taken place of Donald Basil Shields, Carrick-a-Taskin, Derrybeg. His remains are reposing at his late residence. Rosary tonight at 8 o'clock with house private afterwards. House private to family, neighbours and close friends. Funeral Mass in St Mary's Church, Derrybeg, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock with burial afterwards in Maharagallen Cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed live on Kieran Rorty, Funeral Director, Facebook page. The death has taken place of James O'Donnell, Middledore, Bombay. His remains are reposing at his late residence. Rosary tonight at 8 o'clock. House private after Rosary until 11 a.m. House private to family, neighbours and close friends. Funeral Mass in St Mary's Church, Derrybeg, tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, with burial afterwards in Maharagallon Cemetery. The funeral Mass can be viewed live on Kieran Rorty, Funeral Director, Facebook page. Family flowers only, donations in lieu to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member or Kieran Rorty, Funeral Director. The death has occurred of Sean McGoldrick, Ard O'Donnell, Letterkenny, and formerly of Mullinneary, Killygordon. His remains are reposing at his late home, wake private at the request of the deceased. Funeral Mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Patrick's Church, Crossroads, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed on the St Patrick's Crossroads Facebook page. Family flowers only, donations if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has occurred of Norman O'Hare, 52, Blue Cedars, Ballybuffet. Funeral leaving his late residence this morning at 10:30 for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock in the Church of Mary Immaculate Stranorlar, interment afterwards in Drumbo Cemetery. Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. Donations in lieu of flowers if so desired to the rehab unit, Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member. Funeral private to family and friends only, please. The death has taken place of William Pinkerton, Gortglebe, Rafo. Funeral service in his late home at 1:30 this afternoon, with burial afterwards in Stranorlar Church of Ireland Graveyard. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu to the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member or William Key, Funeral Director. The death has taken place of Anna Marie Annie Gallagher, née Duffy, 341 3D Caledonia Road, Gorbals, Glasgow, formerly of Glen Road, Annagry and Letterkenny. Requiem Mass today at Blessed John Donne Scottish Church, Ballatier Street, Gorbals, Glasgow. Interment in the Lynn Cemetery, Glasgow. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if so desired to the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice, Bella Houston, Glasgow, care of Desmond Maguire Funeral Directors or any family member. And the death has occurred of James McShee, Mara Meelan Dunlow. His remains are reposing at St Patrick's Church, Mina Cross. Funeral Mass this morning at 11 o'clock with interment afterwards in Mahary Cemetery. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Highland Radio. If your child is aged 5 to 11, you can now register for their free COVID-19 vaccine. COVID-19 usually causes mild to moderate illness in this age group, but it can cause more severe illness. All vaccines used in Ireland are tested before they're approved by the European Medicines Agency. To find out more or to register, go to hsc.ie or call HSE Live on 1800 700 700 from the HSE.
And you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show here on Highland Radio with me, Greg Hughes, on this Wednesday, the 5th of January. I do hope you're all well. Some of your comments coming in this morning. Why should my child go back to school tomorrow with 21,000 cases of COVID when for the last 10 days of school before the Christmas break with just 5,000 cases, they only had 40% of their classes due to teachers being absent? It's obviously going to be much worse tomorrow. Another caller says, very nervous about my wee woman going back to school tomorrow and she won't be getting any vaccines. Another, if it wasn't safe for Noma Foley to meet in person with teaching unions, but open up all schools, they say. Hi, Greg, just wondering if others didn't get their property tax bills as I think they have to be paid in January. I'm not sure what the timeline on all that is. It's hard to remember everything. I did know at one point, but unfortunately it's gone. We'll try and find out, or some of our listeners will help us with that maybe. Hi, Greg. Ireland's Facebook is now called the Metaverse. Got a notification this morning. Yeah, I think it's... what it is that the company itself is called the Metaverse, isn't it? Or Meta, and Facebook is part of that. But yeah, will you be walking around your house living in an alternative reality with your headset on? Who's to say? I never left the house at Christmas to stay safe because I knew this virus was rampant and I was needed in my job in the hospital. Yet I watched colleagues party everywhere, and now they're complaining about payment for having to isolate. Anyone who willingly participated in party events over Christmas should not be given pay. Well, if the rules didn't permit that, that's fine. But, you know, people were, and the Taoiseach himself was looking forward to having 3 families over to his house, 4 families all together, perfectly legal. People were able to go out and socialise up until 8 o'clock, albeit up until 8 o'clock, perfectly legal. So how could you then dock people or punish people for living their lives to the rule of the land? That would be unfair, I'd imagine. A caller is sick and tired of teachers complaining everyone else has to get up in the morning and go to work, no questions asked, because we won't get paid if we don't. Teachers should do their same. There is a difference, though, you know, like, and I think people who have an issue with teachers, this is like, you know, throwing petrol on the fire, so to speak. But if we just step back a little bit, you know, and try and think without our preconceived notions and imagine a lot of work. What I'm doing here, I'm sitting in a room on my own, and if I go outside the room, you know, there's a group of people, but not a, you know, it's easy to have your own space in a school environment for a teacher. Okay, and teachers are just humans, so some are going to think this is all a load of codswallop. Some are going to be ultra nervous. Some are going to have sick people around them. Some of them are going to be sick themselves. They could have hypertension. They could be a little overweight, whatever it might be. They are in a room with 29, 30 other human beings who likely have it, at least some of them, very likely to have it. You know, we know that's a fact. Right, so I think, as I say, if we put to one side maybe preconceived notions, I think, you know, it would, if teachers' unions didn't speak out and express that concern that some of these teachers might have, would they be really earning the money that they get from the teachers for it, you know? It is a different environment to a lot of us have to work in, and I'm full of praise for everyone that's worked in retail and all that kind of stuff, but there are some areas of work that there is a greater risk, and well, not maybe, but you would imagine in a room, a small room with, you know, 30 odd people in it, that would be perhaps a workspace that someone who's already cautious might be more nervous to work in, you know. I'm just trying to understand how they might feel about it, because that's what we have to try and do, try and understand what each other are feeling to some point and be a bit more empathetic. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying anyone else should, by the way. It's not my job to tell people how to think or what to do. Radio, lots coming up in the programme, as I mentioned, but not before we find out if you're going to win the bingo. Here's Wednesday's numbers.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Wednesday, the 5th of January. You're playing on a blue coloured sheet. The reference number is S3. It's game number 1. The numbers are 33, 76, 57, 90, the number 7, 34, 47, 48, the number 2, and 77. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 p.m. tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book. Get all your NCBI Radio Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
Loganair's biggest ever sale has landed. We're taking off 15% from a whopping 2 million seats for 2022. And you can book and travel with confidence with our Flex Protect cover and Fly Safe protocols. Plan ahead and get the best fares today at loganair.co.uk. Sale ends the 11th of January. Travel from the 10th of January. Subject to availability, T's and C's apply. Loganair. We make it personal.
Live electricity wires are always near, and coming close to them can be dangerous. So always ask yourself, are you sure it's safe? Look out for electricity wires above and below you. If in doubt, call us on 1800 372 999. It might just save your life. ESB Networks. Stay safe and stay clear of electricity wires.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring half-price sale. Get up to 50% off everything in store. All kitchen and bathroom tiles, all wood flooring, all bathware, all cladding, everything's reduced. It's our biggest ever sale. The right price tiles and wood flooring, half price January sale. Stores nationwide. Sale now on.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at...
The time is 19 minutes past 10. You're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show here on your Highland Radio. We're joined on the line by Glentee's native, Johnny Ward, who's a space product manager with the Realtor Space Systems Engineering. It's great to have you on the programme. John, thanks for joining us.
Hey Greg, thanks for having me.
Right, now, on Christmas Day, a very significant thing happened in terms of our learning of space, and we're talking about deep space here. What was launched?
Yeah, so on Christmas Day, from French Guiana, a NASA European Space Agency telescope called the James Webb Space Telescope was launched. It's a kind of considered the next generation Hubble telescope. It's a flagship NASA mission that's been in development for about 30 years. It cost $10 billion. So that launch was very, very important. It was launched by the European Space Agency and has been sent on its way to a location about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, where it's going to...
Yeah, I was going to say, what's its mission? You're about to go on to that.
Yeah, it's basically going to study the universe. So it's going to look back in time, as such, to when the first galaxies were formed. It's also going to look for exoplanets, so planets that are orbiting around other stars. So not planets within our own solar system, although it will do that too. So it's kind of going to do a lot of stuff, basically.
Some of the images it was sending back, the video, a bit glitchy around launch time. Is that anything to be concerned about?
No, so the one thing that I wanted to discuss was about Realtor. So the company I work for in Dublin, it's a small startup that was tasked with putting the video cameras on the rocket that launched.
I did not know. I'll be honest with you. I did not know that. So my first thing would not have been my first question.
No, and actually that's a good
video. Okay,
it's a good point because so when the video was looking at the James Webb Space Telescope as it was, let's say, sent away from the launcher. There was some grey frames and things like that. Now, that's actually not an issue with the video system itself on the launcher. So what has to happen is, you have camera systems and you collect the images. Then you have to transmit that information down from the rocket to the Earth. You do that through, radio transmission. What happened there essentially was it's very difficult to keep the quality of the image as you collect it with a radio dish actually in Kenya at the time. And then you collect it in Kenya and you have to pipe it all the way over to South America and then it gets displayed. However, there's been recent video where they've cleaned all that up now. And so if you go to the European Space Agency website, or even if you follow the Realtor Twitter account, you'll see these much more cleaner image now where they've managed to correct all those issues.
Right, so tell us more about how Realtor ended up, being involved in such a monumentous mission.
Yeah, so this is, I think a lot of people don't maybe realise that Ireland has a space industry. And so there's actually several companies in Ireland that produce products for use in a space environment. And how Realtor got involved with the James Webb Space Telescope mission was through a relationship with the European Space Agency. So Ireland contributes a budget to the European Space Agency. It's about €20 million every year. Should clarify, the European Space Agency is not the European Union. It's a transnational body of multiple countries: Spain, Germany, UK, Finland, etc. Everyone kind of puts their money in together and collaborates on building technology for space, either for scientific purposes or for Earth observation, etc. And what happens is, as Ireland contributes, the money has to come back to Ireland in the form of geo-return contracts. So Realtor saw that there was an opportunity to produce a camera system for the Ariane 5 rocket, which never had a camera system before. But we knew that for the James Webb Space Telescope launch, it's a $10 billion telescope. You're going to want to see what it looked like as you let it off the rocket. So that's how we won the contract.
Right, now, I haven't seen this yet, but there is a sort of like, I don't know, almost, like in the old days, the cameraman used to put the sheet over his head to stave off the light. I'm not sure if that's quite what this tennis court size sail that's been erected. That has been successfully dispatched now. That's there, that's in place. Are your cameras still able to sort of capture that kind of stuff?
No, so our cameras were just on the rocket. So unfortunately,
did you stick 2 GoPros on their big rocket? Is that what happened to you?
I wish, it would have been much simpler, but no. The cameras we had to produce, they have to be extremely rugged, because you can imagine a launcher. It's basically a controlled explosion that just fires stuff into orbit. So it has to be able to survive a lot of vibration, has to be able to survive shock. And by shock, what I mean is when parts of the rocket have to get discarded because the engine has used up its fuel, they actually have small pyro bolts, so little explosives that go off to just make sure things fall apart. So your camera has to be able to survive that shock. Once you're up in space, there's no air. So it has to be able to handle that it's in a vacuum and that the temperatures were much higher. So it can go up to hundreds of degrees down to negative hundreds of degrees. And also you have radiation. So you have cosmic ray particles, so very high energy particles that can hit your camera, that can damage electronics. So although you can use a GoPro, it's probably higher risk. So we had to do a lot of testing, which was done in Ireland, actually.
It's a bit of a joke, but it's a very serious thing. And our space exploration, and it's a lot of money, and people can have that debate as well. But we use things on an everyday basis that were developed because of sending things or people out to space. So through this process, are we learning stuff? Maybe even Realtor is, as it relates to the applications for cameras on the ground, what we might be able to capture in different environments, or even if it is camera stabilizing technology, is that how we see developments on Earth, by pushing ourselves in trying to sort of achieve the impossible in space?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So there's kind of a multiple thing here. I know people are going to say, oh, sure, why aren't you spending that money on other causes, etc. The first thing is it's not a vast amount of money in the context of the Irish budget. But the second thing is that money comes back, pays for salaries, pays for engineers and scientists in Ireland, keeps them here, and those people can actually develop the skills of how to work at the cutting edge, where you're really working in a very difficult environment, and then those people take those skills and move into other fields. In terms of then applications on Earth, absolutely. If you didn't have a space industry, you would not have, when you open your phone and you go to Google Maps, it tells you where you are. That's not magic. That is done because of global positioning systems, which are satellites in space, which have to get up there through a launcher. The European Union have done their own called Galileo, which gives us our own strategic advantage. And so that's just one example where
Non-stick
space...
frying pans.
Yeah, Teflon. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Where
and even in that,
end?
with astronauts, how they operate in space and how you monitor their vitals and stuff has applications on ground. So with regards to cameras, absolutely. And in fact, one of the next things we're going to look at is using artificial intelligence, which is a great buzzword, to see, can you spot problems on the rocket? But that could absolutely be used on, for example, a train on the ground. If you can look at it and have an intelligent camera that can spot that something's come apart, that can let people know much sooner than a human might be that there's an issue. So that'd be one direct
I'm going to ask a
application.
question that I won't understand the answer to, but anyway, I do that quite regularly. In terms of, how many megapixels are these cameras? How big are they actually in their form, before you attach them to this rocket?
Yeah, so these are high definition cameras. Because they're have to survive all that tough environment, they're quite heavy, so they're actually about a kilogram now of weight. I'd say they're about probably slightly larger than an iPhone in terms of footprint, but they're about maybe 5 to 10 centimeters high.
Well, hopefully their battery lasts longer.
Well, actually, the thing about that is we actually have to fly up a battery with them, a big battery, because not only are there cameras, there's the system that takes all that data and translates it into radio frequency and then sends that down through antennas. So the battery pack itself is about 10 kilos. But that's because you need to run it for several hours while you watch the satellite drift away.
Right, and how long? And maybe you touched on this already, but it's fascinating. How long were these cameras primarily for the launch and the early stages of this, or do they continue in operation? And if so, what will we learn from them, or is it so we can see what's going on, or is it a diagnostic tool, or what happens now in the lifespan of these cameras?
Yeah, so they're purely for engineering and diagnostics, as you correctly said. They're on the upper stage of the rocket now. I should say that the rocket, once it goes up, it comes back down, and it comes back down and burns up in the atmosphere, actually. So you'll see now in America, SpaceX has actually developed the technology that its rockets can come back and land, which is a very, very a game changer in the context of space exploration and industry. But our cameras have burned up in the upper atmosphere.
Yes.
So it's a good business model, but it's also not very effective.
But it also goes to show, and it's interesting, because in my head, the rocket and the cameras and the telescope were all part of the same thing forever, but of course not. The cameras were attached to the rocket, which gets the satellite into space, and then they part.
You can look at the rocket like it's like an Arctic truck.
Yeah.
It just brought the product up, it sent it on its way, and then it came back to Earth.
Right. Now, have you, in terms of the work of this this telescope itself, have you taken an interest in that? Do you have an interest in space, what it might capture, or were you more about getting it up there and then moving on to the next project?
Funny, my background is actually in astrophysics, so I did a degree and PhD in astrophysics, so I studied a lot of astrophysical phenomena. So for me, of course, it's interesting. I actually left academia, though, to move into engineering. You know, my father's an engineer, my brother's an engineer. So in a way, I was a bit of a black sheep in the family by doing physics. So I've kind of come back into the fold now, and I'm more interested in the engineering.
The peer pressure was just too much.
Yeah, too much. too awkward at Christmas. But the James Webb Space Telescope, it's an incredible piece of technology. And as you mentioned, that sun shield that folds out to the size of a tennis court, that's to keep that instrument at basically near absolute zero, so that it's sensitive to the light from the distant universe, and it will reveal some incredible things about our history as a species living on the Earth in a universe. I know that sounds very grandiose, but I think it's a very important mission to give us more understanding about where we come from, what's our place in the universe.
Yes, and the first success was weeding our way up through Elon Musk's satellites. That's that is a difficult
absolutely
course, a difficult course to navigate, and it's quite remarkable in that regard. There are people now in Ireland getting their broadband from his network of satellites.
That's exactly, and that's another great application that we haven't talked about is telecommunications. So internet from space, and I think it's very important, especially
but it's happening
for some
now.
people in Donegal.
It's 99 quid a month or something, but people now, people know, familiar with Elon Musk, is an interesting character, but people now in Ireland are, because they can't get it from Air or Vodafone, are getting their broadband service. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off, but they're putting more satellites up from what is it, X something or other?
SpaceX, yeah.
So what's Realtor Space Systems Engineering working on next, John?
Yeah, so obviously the video system, the Vicky as it's called, we're going to put that on the next generation of the Ariane group, which is the European launcher company, on the Ariane 6. We're also working on an exoplanet hunter called Plato. It's a European Space Agency mission. So we're building a system that's going to control the temperature of the telescopes. That's a really fascinating experiment, because it's going to look for planets that may contain potentially alien life out in the galaxy. We're also involved in...
We do need to find another planet to destroy, because we've almost done the job on this one, so we are going to have to pick our next victim.
It's not the optimal. It's going to take a long time to get there. I think we should probably focus on making this one work as well. But we're also heavily involved in that, in fact, and we're working on systems that are going to look down at the Earth and help understand agriculture, the weather, climate change, etc.
Just in relation to testing, right? Obviously you talked about such a unique situation as in terms of vibration, heat, radiation. How do you test how do you create an environment on Earth, or perhaps you do it in space, I don't know. How do you create an environment on Earth that will sort of, you can test those boundaries? Because they're so unique almost to a specific series of events, i.e. blasting into space.
Yeah, no, and you're spot on. It's not trivial. And actually, one thing that happened during COVID was that we developed the capabilities to run space simulation stuff on the island of Ireland, which would not have existed before, because what was typical here is that you do the standard thing. We'll go to the UK, we'll go to France, we'll go to Germany, and that's all well and good. And we partially did that for testing this system until COVID came and we couldn't travel. So what do? We ended up having to come up with systems here in Ireland, and there's a company in DCU who actually built a thermal vacuum chamber. So that's a steel box, or steel cylinder, that will pump out all the air. So it's just like space. It has a heating and cooling element in it, so you can heat and cool things to kind of simulate what the sun is like on your components. So we managed to test our system in that. Then actually, in a great example, I would say, of all-island cooperation, in Newry, County Down, there's a facility called Resonate Testing Limited. They have a vibration table, so it's literally a thing that shakes your system. It's usually done in automotives and military applications, but it does the job to pretend it's a rocket launch. And also during that, they developed a shock system. Now, this sounds ridiculous, but what they did was they took 3 sledgehammers, they welded the heads together, and they dropped it with a lever arm onto a big metal plate. Our camera was, about maybe half a meter away from that sledgehammer.
I know it's more scientific, but I can just imagine 2 fellas standing there going, it's not going to be much worse than that.
And when you see it live, you think that exactly. It is a very violent looking event, and it sounds kind of silly, but that's actually very, very technical in terms of you have to measure the shock, the vibration, how it goes into your system to make sure that it mimics the rocket in the real life. And so we now in Ireland, on the island of Ireland, can do from first principles all the way through testing, can do an entire space system, and that's something we couldn't do before the pandemic.
It's
so
amazing
if
we're challenged. It's amazing what we can do,
especially in Ireland. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have to suppose someone has to set the parameters to say, well, this is actually, and I was joking a wee bit, this is actually, what we can expect. Finally, until it's actually happening, you don't know it's going to work. So how nervous is that? How big a deal is that for the likes of yourself and Realtor? And then, of course, obviously, how euphoric then is it when it's like, we did it, guys, girls and boys, we did it.
Yeah, no, it was extremely nerve-wracking, I have to be honest. You have to understand, we developed that system from concept to delivery within under 2 years, which in the space industry is kind of unheard of. Like, we really worked hard, and it was a core team. We're only about 10 people. And so for a startup to be able to go to these big European companies and say, look, we think this system's going to work, trust us, and then actually see it on the day, on Christmas Day, I watched it with my dad in Glenties, to be able to watch the thing deploy and to see our visuals, and then to see those visuals getting shared around the world, on CNN, on BBC, in Irish media. It's it makes you extremely proud and
rightly so. It's a brilliant achievement to be part of something, and it's history. Then you see, it can never be taken away.
Absolutely, it was iconic footage. Yeah. And the thing about it is, that's a small Irish company. There's many of us. The Irish space industry is going to grow and grow and grow. And partially what I want people to understand is that we do have a space industry here. It's something that does generate employment, and it's something worth investing in. And I think that's just one example that does, because of an Irish company, those images are spread around the world.
Brilliant stuff. And just very finally, because I would be thinking about it afterwards, the obviously the initial bit of blocking and what have you, it was recorded. Was it recorded on the rocket and then downloaded, or do we have software on the ground that can interpolate those images and create a better quality video? How does that side of it work?
So it was broadcast essentially live from the rocket, and the images on the ground were captured live, and essentially they're ready to go from as they're received. And as I say, the dropped frames, the dropped images you saw was just a small problem at the ground station getting the information to create.
But they were all there.
Ironically, the internet on the Earth was probably the problem there.
But they were all there on the ground. It was just then a case of picking out the dodgy frames, and there it was. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just interested in that, and as I say, might as well ask rather than. Listen, it's brilliant stuff. It's fantastic that a Glentees man, a Donegal man, so heavily involved in this project in Realtor Space Systems Engineering, and that we are, and I know that's a point you've wanted to make a couple of times, and it's an important one, that we have an industry here, a space industry here, and we are making a difference, and it's something we should be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen,
absolutely.
thanks for your time. I appreciate it greatly. It's been wonderful chatting to you.
Thanks a million.
All right, take care of yourself.
Care.
That's Glentees man John E. Ward, Space Product Manager with Realtor Space Systems Engineering.
With great reductions throughout the store. Selected kids' clothing reduced to clear. Also Adidas tracksuits for all ages on bmcsports.ie. Men's and women's sports clothing with discounts of up to 40% off. Check out the Brian McCormick's winter sale in store or click on bmcsports.ie.
For great fuel deals, contact Gortley Sales and Hire. Large sacks and trailer loads of logs. Also briquettes, coal, kindling and gas with free delivery locally. Contact Gortley Sales and Hire in Letterkenny on 91-262-76.
If you're concerned about safe grocery shopping right now, what could be safer than doing it from the comfort of your own home? With Click and Collect at Kelly Centra in Letterkenny, you simply download the Centra app, order your shopping and then pull into the car park to collect at a time that suits. Or phone in your order on 91-22026 for no fuss, no contact shopping. At Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
At Smith's Daleside, our range of high-energy beef diets will give you increased daily live weight gain and quicker finishing times. Talk to our sales team at Smith's Daleside about our range of beef feeds on 074 9171 300.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Now, does my voice sound low or is it my ears? I've problem with my sinuses at the moment and my ears just aren't working like they should. Caller says she got a PCR test in the north with results back in 24 hours. Can this test be used to apply for the COVID illness payment? I don't know. We should try. They're accepting antigen tests, so if they're accepting an antigen test, I can't imagine they wouldn't accept a PCR test. Now, repairs to a burst water main may cause supply disruptions to Greencastle Village, Carrs Transra, Shrove and surrounding areas. Works are scheduled to take place until 4 p.m. today. We recommend, Irish Water do, that you allow 2 to 3 hours after the estimated restoration time for your supply to fully return. And you're asked to take note of the following reference number and enter into the search bar should you wish to return for an update. Well, it's DON 000425006. And you're being advised that road traffic issues are also likely due to this water notice. Right, let's take a piece of music. There were a couple of shows. There was a documentary over... Is it a documentary? Oh, it's a programme anyway. Feature programme on Daniel O'Donnell, obviously. He had his Late show celebrating his 60th birthday. And also the BBC, as we previewed on this show before Christmas, the BBC and RTE aired a show about him. Excellent show. I thought it was an excellent show because it... showed, for those who wouldn't be aware, many of us are, the sort of the impact he's had and the type of person he is. And it was good to see his video La Di Da down at the La Di Da getting a mention because it was it lifted the spirits of a lot of people in December. Here's the song for which the video was made for. All right, that is Daniel O'Donnell down at the La-Di-Da. Coming up after 11, we're going to be talking about fitness. You know, it's the start of the new year, and maybe you want to improve things for yourself. Well, we're going to be bringing you some advice in relation to that as part of Wellness Wednesday. So if you have any questions, you know, about getting fit or what you could be doing, what you should be doing, any dietary questions, anything like that there, we'll try and get some answers for you. You contact Caroline on 07491 25000, even if you don't want to do it now, because, you know, I think if you do things right at the start of the year, there is a school of thought out there that it's not the best time to do things because there's so much pressure then, and it's dark and it's cold. So maybe it's something you plan on doing when the queer stretch in the evenings is even queerer in February or March or into April. But whatever it might be, if you have any questions about health and fitness, or your health and fitness, or what you could do to improve it, then get in touch with us right now. Your WhatsApps and text 086 60 25000. If you're watching us across our Facebook pages, our YouTube page, make sure to comment there if you want to as well. And hit subscribe if you don't mind. It's good. It helps us. And if you're watching us anyway, you might as well, if you're on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, if you hit the subscribe button, it's useful. And you can also hit the bell and be notified when we go live. It's not just this program, and you're going to see more and more video content through 2022 here on Highland Radio. It's we are the county's biggest media outlet across radio, across the internet, and also in terms of streaming video online. So you might as well be part of that. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be notified on either Facebook or YouTube when we go live. Right, we're going to be talking about the reopening of schools again, getting an inside track on it from a school after these.
Is 2022 the year you need to change your mattress? Restex Beds Letterkenny, the massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
At Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms, Donegal Town, their sale is now on. New 2022 collections now in stock, with great offers across all ranges. See in store for details. Book a design consultation today on 074 9725 822 or see cherrymore.ie. Cherrymore, excellence in manufacturing since 1996.
Homeland Fuel offers, keeping you warm for less. 20 kg Super Therm, buy 5 bags, get 1 bag of hardwood logs free. 10 kg wood pellets, buy 10, get 1 free. Board Namona briquettes, buy 3 for €16. Shop in-store or online at homeland.ie.
Forward Emphasis International, based in Mallinhead, are actively recruiting for customer service advisors with both permanent remote working and hybrid opportunities available. Experience in contact centres or insurance services is desirable but not essential, as full training is provided. Fully funded financial services qualifications delivering attractive career path opportunities are available. Please visit their website www.forwardemphasis.ie or apply via their careers page.
Do you currently have vacancies that need urgently filled? Have you tried various ways to find new staff but didn't succeed? Let Highland Radio help you source and fill your current vacancies in the most cost-effective way. Simply sign up to our new job spot and we will tell our listeners about your vacancies both on air and online. Every Monday, Wednesday and Friday during our primetime shows, we will broadcast the latest job opportunities across the Northwest and into counties Derry and Tyrone. All job listings will be available online at highlandradio.com. For more information, contact the advertising team on 07491 25322 or email advertising@highlandradio.com. Highland Radio, we're here for you.
Okay, now we are speaking to a deputy principal of a local school. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on the programme today. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Greg.
Right, now, what's the reality as we head towards opening, in your lived experience, as we head towards the reopening of schools tomorrow?
Okay, this is how the land lies with us, Greg. And I speak on behalf of my fellow colleagues, and I'm quite sure the extended fraternity of primary teachers, I'm coming from the primary school end now, we have no desire to be closed. And I want that stated very clearly to all the parent bodies out there. We have no desire to go back to online teaching. That is not what we want to do. Nobody particularly enjoyed it, and we all saw the value that online face-to-face tuition has for children, for social interaction at school. So let that point be made now. We very much want to be back. But the reality on the ground, as it was prior to Christmas, is that we are not going back to what the government would like to put a spin on is safe environment. We on the ground know that the environment is not, as they call it, safe. Yes, we have carbon filters in the school, or carbon
monitors
in the school, which tell us to keep the windows open all day, which we do. And quite frequently throughout the winter, you have 28 plus children sitting in their coats plus the teacher, and we've done that with windows
but just
all
before
open.
you move on, though, like, would filters not be a better solution to that? Because I think anyone, teachers are us and we are teachers. You know what I mean? Teachers aren't some alien race that don't have empathy for children and what have you. Proper ventilation and the windows closed, that would be better. That would be proper mitigation, surely.
Well, grants have been made available for the purchase of HEPA filters, which principals had to source and buy over the Christmas period. And they will, now that's the next phase, is that those be put in place, which ultimately would have been the right move from the very beginning. But you might remember around about Halloween, a decision was made by the government kind of ease the restrictions around the opening of nightclubs, and contact tracing was removed from schools at that time. Why, I will never understand. Because what happened, and we knew it would happen.
Well, they said at the time, and then you can continue your point, they said at the time that we're doing, so many tests every single day, and they're coming back at about 2 or 3% positive. It's a waste of resources. We'd be better off targeting this in other areas because cases aren't spreading in schools. Children are catching it at home, bringing it into school. It's not spreading in schools, and all these tests are coming back negative.
That's right. That's what they say. Now, this is what we say on the ground, because we lived it, Craig, before Christmas in the schools. And you can see, and it was evident, that cases began to spiral, particularly toward the end, kind of mid-November, right through and up to Christmas. The reality on the ground was that transmission was happening in schools as children passed the virus from one to the other, despite our greatest efforts. Not only that, but staff also contracted the virus. It doesn't choose. And
we knew that, we knew that. We know that, and they can keep saying it wasn't happening and it's not happening, but we knew that, and it felt so patronising and frustrating because I'm a parent. I know people who are teachers. I know what's happening. I'm not silly. None of us are silly. It was spreading in school because one child had it on Monday, and then 4 or 5 other children, and maybe a teacher had it by Friday. That we knew what was happening.
Absolutely, Greg. I'm going to speak just briefly from the personal point. I actually contracted COVID myself a few weeks before Christmas. I'm fully vaccinated, the whole lot, and it was no ordinary flu for me. And I really had concerns about the youngsters who are in my care. I would speak from our school community perspective. We really look after them, and we love the children in our care. We have a great parent community, and I do want to put that out there today, who were incredibly supportive, and we are really grateful of that. But on the ground, it was exhausting. I mean, this is a very long and protracted period, and yes, I know healthcare workers have been absolutely to the fore and on the front line, but we were still well down the vaccination list, and we were dealing with the largest unvaccinated cohort in the country, remember. That has to be. We went back in there last year, and we were afraid. There's a notion out there that we are superhuman. We are not. We have children. We are carers of elderly people in our own homes. Some teachers have children with special needs. So we had all the same valid concerns as everybody else. And I just feel that our department and the government, that notion that schools are safe environments, I just found it insulting. It grieved me. And I felt for my fellow colleagues who have been ploughing on relentlessly, and it is exhausting. Our school principals spend so much time on phone calls, paperwork, sorting subs, and we go back in tomorrow with quite a few of our staff members off from COVID-related.
What does that mean? How do you plug the gaps there? If that's not a crude way of putting it.
Well, initially, when we went back in last year, we were unvaccinated, remember, at that point. The remit was that if staff members or a class teacher became ill, that the support team, those teachers in special ed and the support teachers, went in and filled the gaps. So where pods were kept very strictly and classes there was no mixing, we had to fill those gaps. And it will continue to be the same. which in one way, I suppose, is it's a solution when you cannot find a sub, but it's not ideal either. It's not ideal.
You see,
either.
I think from what you're saying is that we know what's best for our children. We know what's best for us too. I went stir crazy at home for 2 weeks. I need to go to work. So
did many teachers who had to teach their own children. Along with doing online.
If you're used to it, sitting at home, it can drive you a wee bit stir crazy.
Yeah.
But I think if teachers felt more understood, or if the conversation was real, if we were actually making these decisions in the reality that we all know, rather than that the schools are getting all the supports that they need, their safe environment, principals aren't contact tracing, if we were having a real conversation, I think maybe teachers might feel less aggrieved.
Absolutely. It's the negativity that came with this, and the lack of support. I can tell you that last year, when so many of the services were unavailable to us because, they weren't doing face-to-face counselling sessions, or let's say speech and language sessions or OT sessions, teachers were plugging those gaps, and it was tough going. We did it. It wasn't easy, but a lot of the departments and bodies we tried to make contact with were unavailable to us, and that is still the case. Like, I know that before Christmas, several times trying to get advice from public health authorities, etc., there was no one at the end of the line, Greg. And we were left adrift and left to our own devices, and that needs to be acknowledged, and that needs to be said. I also think that under the Department of Education, there are so many smaller departments, quangos we call them, that are related to them, kind of under this umbrella of the department, and so many of them were not actually operational during that period of time. Why can't those people be seconded out to schools to help us in sub-crisis? What is the issue? Like, surely to God, there's a case there for people being redeployed to help schools in this current crisis.
Listen,
I think it's... Sorry.
30 seconds, and then I have to take a break for the news, if you've something you want to say just before we go.
Absolutely not an issue.
Okay. I just want you to know you've been heard, and I hope... that is some comfort.
And I mean, thank you. I appreciate that, Greg. I appreciate it sincerely. And I want to really welcome the children back tomorrow with open hearts. We really do care about them. Parent body also, and thank them for their support to date. But I would like an acknowledgement. By the way, that meeting that was held yesterday, I hear, was heard and carried out online.
Right, you have to be safe. You have to be safe, yes, of course.
The irony of that alone. So, thank you, Greg.
I did reference that earlier. Indeed, it was like when you were being sent back into schools previously, and the Dáil was sitting in the convention centre because it wasn't safe for TDs to be on top of each other. All right, it's all noted and what have you. Listen, thanks very much indeed, Geraldine. Appreciate it greatly. News is upon the way.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
Milford Tiles and Wood Flooring, Milford Retail Park. January sale is now on. Get 15% off everything in store. 15% off tiles, bathware, wood flooring, adhesives and grout. Yes, you heard right. 15% off everything in store for 2 weeks only. Milford Tiles and Wood Flooring, 083 0910 707.
The Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale is now in full swing at our Letterkenny store, supplying only the finest quality, luxurious Irish-made beds and mattresses with genuine savings throughout our range. We look forward to seeing you at the Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale.
Another Christmas gone, another year begun. Another opportunity to do those things you've been meaning to do for so long. Maybe doing something about your hearing loss is one of those things. At Hidden Hearing, we are the hearing experts. Our expert audiologists will assess your needs and recommend what's right for you. The results can be life-changing. Book a free hearing test today. Go to hiddenhearing.ie or call 1-800-370-000. Hidden Hearing. Your hearing is our expertise.
Okay, I think we've all made a commitment to try and, new year, new you for 2022. Maybe you're going to do that through fitness. We're going to bring you some advice to help you along the way. Get in touch with us. Let us know what questions we can answer for you. But it's 11 o'clock, so let's get a news update and cross over to the newsroom and say good morning to Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. The Green Party leader says we may be close to the peak of the current wave of COVID-19. The Cabinet is meeting today to discuss the high case numbers, but isn't planning to bring in more restrictions. Meanwhile, the Public Expenditure Minister says he hopes NPHET will allow the isolation rules for close contacts to be relaxed. They currently have to stay at home for 5 days, even if they've had a booster and don't have COVID symptoms. It's led to staff shortages at many businesses, with calls for the guidance to be eased. Well, a number of schools in Donegal are already without a high number of teachers before they reopen tomorrow due to the impact of the virus. Absences in schools across the county and nationwide are expected to increase drastically by the end of this week. The Education Minister admits the reopening of schools will not be without challenges, but has given the go-ahead for them to reopen. The Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation is calling for elective procedures in hospitals to be cancelled for the entire month. HSE CEO Paul Reid has told hospitals to prioritise urgent and COVID-19 care for the next fortnight and to scale back elective procedures. Letterkenny University Hospital remains the second most overcrowded hospital in the country today. 39 people are waiting on a bed at the hospital, according to the INMO's Trolley Watch report. That's up 3 from yesterday. A Donegal councillor says he will be urging the authority to liaise with the HSE and others to assess how the fire service in the county can assist the ambulance service. Yesterday, Deputy Podger McLaughlin said he'd been told by the National Ambulance Service that it would welcome backup from fire service personnel, particularly in cases of cardiac issues. And conviction rates for using a mobile phone while driving are as low as 14% in some parts of the country. New data seen by the Irish Times shows between 2018 and 2020, 25% of people who were brought to court nationally were convicted. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
Thank you very much, Michaela. Right, now we're joined on the programme by Aoife McGill-Hunter, owner of Aoife McGill Personal Training at the Mountain Top in Letterkenny. How are you getting on?
Hello, Greg. Happy New Year.
It's good to see you again, and a very happy New Year to you. Listen, we're talking about it because a lot of us are trying to maybe, start 2022 as we mean to go on. But is it wise to sort of pick specific dates or times of the year and trying to change everything? Is that a good strategy?
Well, anytime it's never too late to get started, but January
I was hoping to push it out to April, but okay, carry on.
No, this tends to be the time of year that people get the New Year's resolutions ready to rock, and it's not a bad time to start, but I always recommend, especially members here or anybody really, that you don't just go for January to set further targets. Believe it or not, I always use it Easter, believe it or not, from here on in, because really between now and Easter, from this week alone, there's 14 weeks to go. So for mini targets to keep people on track, I would say if you reward yourself, say once a month, so you've got 3 rewards, 3 mini targets between now and then, and it's between 12 and 14 weeks is a realistic time frame for real solid results, not a 4-week hell for leather manic stuff and then give up.
So before we get into that, what is the breakdown between sort of diet and physical activity? Do you know what I mean? In terms of what you might want to achieve, you can't really do it one way or other, can you? If you want to, not just maybe it's about losing weight, but it's not always about weight. Maybe it's about gaining weight. But whichever it is, what is the sort of balance between, physical exertion or training versus, what you consume in terms of achieving results?
Yeah, assuming in relation to weight loss, it definitely goes hand in hand. Like you said, I appreciate not everybody's goals is weight loss related, for mental health benefits or weight gain or whatever it is. But really, it really is a mixture of healthy eating, balanced nutrition, and physical activity. Yeah. And your physical activity, that can be simple things like parking at the far side of the car park and walking that bit further, taking the stairs. But your nutrition, I often say people remark that they can train, say 7 days a week and I'm not getting anywhere. Well, nobody trains 7 days a week. You might train 7 hours in the week or 7 days. Your nutrition has to go in hand and side with that. Balanced nutrition, simple things like upping your water intake, introducing some good carbohydrates, proteins,
Now,
and
what's
fats.
a carbohydrate? What's a carbohydrate?
So say for your breakfast, for example, you can have your porridge.
Yes.
Your whole meal, like your brown breads, your pastas are fine, your rice are fine, your potatoes are fine. Like, they get a lot of bad press, especially this time of year. You'll hear a lot of different diet plans and whatnot. But basically, the simplest advice I can give anybody for weight loss, and as far as nutrition goes, is sort of to create a calorie deficit, no matter where it comes from. And to be honest, after the Christmas rush, I mean, people tend to have the snacks and the treats in from early December. If you cut them out alone in January, you're going to have that deficit that you overindulged in over the month. But as I said, you'll hear all these plans now and advice of different maybe weight loss programs or whatnot, but they'll always have a calorie deficit out of somewhere. So if you're in a low-fat diet, your calorie deficit there. If you're in a low-carbohydrate diet, there's your deficit there. So I recommend balance across them all. I would, assuming you have no allergies and things, I would create balance across all food groups, cut nothing out.
And if anyone's going to make major changes, like, it's always good to talk to your GP anyway, because the other person might know you best. So that's the caveat right from the beginning, and I think people understand that. So in terms of how you eat, okay, and as I say, we'll get on to more productive stuff, but the simple stuff that maybe we skim over at times and people don't sort of know where to start. So skipping breakfast is not advisable. Some of us might do that. Our first meal might be at lunchtime and we think, right, that's one meal down, we're doing well today. Is it important to have a healthy breakfast?
You know, it is. I really recommend breakfast is nearly the most important meal of the day, because it sets you up for the rest of your day.
But if I have breakfast at about 7 or half 7, right, I'm starving at about 10 o'clock. But if I don't have breakfast, I've no problem lasting out to lunchtime.
Yeah, and it's funny the way the body works like that, but you'll tend to overeat then at lunchtime, portion sizes.
Right. Yes, you're right. Okay, will you stop watching me eating? It's really uncomfortable. How else could you know this?
But just it's routine, you know. You hear it a lot, and people often remark that they cannot eat breakfast in the morning, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the minute you get out of bed, but it can be within the hour or the hour and a half.
So, we'd have a breakfast, a porridge or Weetabix or something like that, presumably. And then, you know, what might you eat then as the throughout the course of the day? What would be a good... Would you have something mid-morning? What would be a good lunch? Is there anything you should have mid-afternoon? What's like an example of a good evening meal?
But again, it's supposed to depend on the person, but for across the board, people could work it into their own schedules, that on average, if they have a meal or snack on something every 4 hours to tide them over, so that you don't have the lows, the sugar lows, and you keep everything nice and balanced. So if you have, say, your carbohydrate breakfast, which say like your porridge, or protein like scrambled eggs, say turkey rashers or something to that effect with the protein, that you can have, say, a piece of fruit and a yogurt mid-morning.
Yeah. See, if I had turkey rashers and scrambled egg, I would eat that every morning, no problem. It's the thought of, you know,
cooking
toast.
it.
Yeah, that's it.
Say if you miss, you can have your fruit if you're running short of time. Say your fruit and maybe your natural yogurt in the morning, and have, if you have means to cook those things mid-morning.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not going on empty is a key. Eating regularly.
Okay, so for lunch then, you know, what's a reasonable lunch?
See, if you're working and you're taking a packed lunch with you, so you have options for that. Some people are at home and they're able to cook. But assuming you're taking a packed lunch, say you're going to work, I would say a wholemeal wrap. You can fill it with as much protein, say chicken or ham, and have a side of veg with it to tie you over. Again, you can have some fruit with that. If you have the means to cook.
Yeah. Now, just in terms of, some people might have the larger meal at lunchtime and a lighter meal in the evening. Basically, that doesn't really matter, does it, Aoife?
No. Do you know what? To be fair, I think as long as you get your meals in, you're not skipping meals.
Yeah.
Like on that, like some people say to me, sure, I've been told not to eat past 6 in the evening. I wouldn't agree with that either. I mean, everybody's shift work and your day runs differently. Myself, I tend to eat on my working day. Well, this is my first day back after maternity leave.
Well done. How's it going?
It's my main meal, a heavier meal around lunchtime, because I'm more active than that in the evening for classes and things, so I'll eat a bit later than in the evening.
Yes.
But whatever works for you.
Yeah, and then in terms of your evening meals, what are good meals? Because or could you start off even with smaller portions, or do you really want to make sure you're eating the right types of food?
For weight loss, smaller portions are a great way to go. Even a smaller plate and fill it up. Sometimes it can be psychological. If you have a full plate of food, sometimes
I have two sets. One's a smaller plate, and the other's a larger plate. And you put the same food in both, and you feel like you're spoiling yourself on the smaller plate, and you feel like you're starving yourself on the bigger plate. It's astonishing, and that was slowly introduced into our lives. The bigger table plates, going back generations, the plates were far smaller. So that definitely is a thing.
Definitely. And if you stay there and with the plate that you're feeling you're hard done by, you'll sometimes go back for seconds and you'll be satisfied with a small plate, believe it or not. I would get anybody to try it just to see how the effects psychologically can be. But as far as portion sizes go, I would, or what to have on your plate, I would always recommend, say, a portion of protein, fats, and carbohydrate at every meal.
So that's spuds, veg, and chicken. Is that?
Yep. And I would nearly, for section of your plate, so you have a larger section of, say, your protein, say your chicken and your veg, and a smaller portion of your potatoes or your rice.
Yeah, the delicious.
But I wouldn't cut out any food groups. Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, in terms of, say for instance, spaghetti bolognese is nice. Okay, spaghetti bolognese is nice, but you can get the jar of it and you can pour it in. But it's the most simplest thing to make yourself: tin of tomatoes and bits and bobs, right? Is it better? Does it make any difference? Is it better to use your own ingredients and make a bolognese than to tip in a jar of bolognese sauce? I know it's a very specific example, and there are loads of others, but does that kind of thing make a difference if you know the ingredients and what's in it?
Absolutely, because that was a good example for your bolognese, because a jar of bolognese alone is loaded with sugar, where if you make your own, you have almost half that and more.
Wow! So and it's not. I don't add any sugar to my bolognese.
You're not adding.
It's whatever's in the ingredients then.
Yeah, and it's just vegetables really. I mean, you're making it with your tin tomatoes, your garlic, your herbs.
That's it.
Your fruit. That's it. Like, it's a real healthy meal, to be honest. If you use your lean mince and.
Okay, now the challenge we have often is, where do I bloody start? You know what I mean? Like, and if I start on Monday, why haven't I lost 4 or 5 pounds on Friday? Or maybe actually someone might lose 4 or 5 pounds on Friday, but nothing happens the following Friday, and they go, "What's the point in all of this?" So, how do we get? What do we set targets? Do we not set targets? How do we do that sort of mental side of it so that we stick with it, Aoife?
But first of all, I would absolutely do it for yourself, for nobody else. Set your own. I would absolutely set targets as well. You need something to keep you accountable.
Is it weight?
Motivated.
Is it how you feel? Is it how your clothes fit? What works best?
A mixture of everything. It really is. But as far as the weighing scales go, I would park them. You can use them as a tool to aid your success, but I wouldn't put your hopes and dreams into them. A real motivating aid I find helps people is taking progress photographs and going by your clothes, see how your clothes fit, your belt is a few notches in, and so on. You photograph your progress photos. I say if you take those once a month, you can physically see your shape changing, assuming you're doing your exercise and you're eating well. But I would set realistic, sort of achievable goals. Don't vow to train 7 days a week or avoid your favourite food. It's not maintainable. Slow and steady. And as I say, between now and Easter, 14 weeks away, it's a real good, sensible time frame to make real results and keep them. Maintaining it's the key. It's not just 4 weeks of madness now in January.
Yeah, so it's taking things slowly, having a plan, something that's achievable. As you said right at the beginning, not set a target or whatever, but look towards Easter. It's a long way away. If you make some changes, you will see some changes over that period of time.
And break it down into blocks between now and then. So every 4 weeks, aim for a target, meet it, and then reward yourself for doing that. Okay. I would say aim for a little better, not perfection, just a little better.
And fundamentally, do we over focus on? It's hugely important how we look and how we feel about ourselves. But this is also about prolonging life. This is about taking pressure off joints. This is about, when you hit maybe into your 70s and 80s, if you're not already there, to be able to enjoy a better quality of life. I think sometimes it's so important how we feel in the now. Yes, of course. But we also we need to look at really what we're trying to achieve in terms of our standard of life for as long as we possibly can drag out of it.
Yeah, that's it. Just for health in general, like weight loss aside, your cardio fitness, keeping everything ticking. It's just simple things, right back to say even consuming your water. Keeping hydrated, you're keeping your digestion under
I'm
control.
asking for a friend. If you put a wee bit of Mawadi in the water, is it still water? This just came in on text.
Yeah, I did. It's fine. It's fine. I would tend to go the sugar-free option, but it's no harm.
That's
You're
all right.
getting fluid.
That was my question. If it's okay, that's my question. That's all right then. But these genuine are coming in on text now. Could you ask if buying a NutriBullet is a good idea or getting all the fruit and veg via a smoothie is better? I've heard different reports on this about breaking it down and all that kind of stuff. What's your views, Aoife?
But I have a NutriBullet myself. I do use it. I like it. I like it for mornings. Say the breakfast options. If you're busy and you don't have time, throw it in the NutriBullet and away you go. Evidence does say it's better to eat your fruit whole, so the sugars aren't too quickly released. But then you can choose your lower sugar fruits for your smoothies and things. All right. But I like a NutriBullet, to be fair.
A listener went at it, lost 2 stone, but when they went back to their daily life, so presumably this is surrounded about lockdown, they put on 3 stones, so they ended up a stone heavier than they started. They're trying to get themselves into a routine again, but they want your help.
I would, yeah, and that's common, but I'm not judging the listener or anything, but sometimes with a drastic move like that, it can be really almost long crash dieting, where it's all or nothing, and then everything goes to the wayside, everything stops.
It's the only show in town, so if you stop it, the reverse happens.
Like my word, I'm steady saying it and here in the gym, is consistency. Consistency is key. That is something you can long term keep up and maintain. That it's not a stop start. It's not rush for a 2 stone weight loss and then give up. Consistency.
Yeah. All right. Now, in terms of, exercise, because, people have, the couch to 5K, which I'm sure is a brilliant thing, but it's it kind of suggests, though, that anyone can get up off a couch and next thing it's 5K, but there's a big gap between those two things. So you mentioned earlier on parking the car a little bit further away, taking the stairs instead. But in terms of something more structured, like where it all depends on your ability levels, of course. But like how much do you need to say start walking, and when do you need to start picking up the pace and so on?
The recommendations that everybody should walk almost about every day. Walking, most people can do. But as far as goals and targets go, if you want to increase your fitness levels, I would find something you enjoy. Some people prefer to do things on their own, go for a walk, stick on a pair of headphones. Some people like it as a more social thing. Like here in Letterkenny alone, there's loads of options from, you have the likes of the park runs, you've got couch to 5Ks going, you've got different facilities and gyms and leisure centres with a broad range of classes. There's something for everybody. And if you come to a gym and you try the class and you don't like it, it doesn't mean you won't like everything that's available to people. So try something find something that you like.
And it's. I mean, obviously we're going to say it, right? But I think it would probably be something that might work for you if you engage with someone like yourself that can assess the situation, that can give you realistic goals, that can give you some idea about nutrition. That is I think that's a big leap forward compared to not having that information, Aoife.
That's it. It can be a step. It's a good sort of step on the ladder to help people achieve their goals. For the likes of myself, it's say somebody who just has never been to the gym before, aren't sure how to complete, say, particular exercises like a push-up or a sit-up correctly. It can be reassuring. People can be afraid of hurting themselves as well. And current COVID times, and there's no sign of it going away.
There is, hopefully.
Well, hopefully. We've sort of got the options of one-to-one training or small group training, smaller classes and then larger classes, socially distanced and everything. But something where you can feel comfortable with.
Okay.
Of getting the ball rolling.
Right. Okay. People can contact you, and there's loads of great people out there working in health and fitness, and there's lots of groups, as you've mentioned as well. There's options all over. It's just a case of us taking that step. Aoife, congratulations on your return to work. Sorry to be the face that you have to look at when you're trying to sort everything else out. But listen, we really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for it. I appreciate it greatly.
Thanks very much, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. Take care of yourself. Okay, that is Aoife McGill-Hunter, owner of Aoife McGill Personal Training at the Mountaintop in Letterkenny, if you want to speak to Aoife, if you like what she had to say. But as I say, there's lots of people out there working in this area. And, I think it's something, if we can, we all want to maybe have a look at. Right, okay. We're going to be speaking to the General Manager of Letterkenny University Hospital shortly.
Is 2022 the year you need to change your mattress? Restex Beds Letterkenny, the massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show. Don't be without your favourite brand toiletries, cosmetics and fragrances with McGee's Chemist, where you can click and collect or have them delivered to your door. Email your list, no matter how big or small, to cosmetics@mcgees.ie or send a text to the dedicated order line. See mcgees.ie or Facebook for more details. Don't be without your everyday essentials with McGee's Chemist, Main Street, Letterkenny and mcgees.ie, where the best costs less.
Forward Emphasis International, based in Mallinhead, are actively recruiting for customer service advisors with both permanent remote working and hybrid opportunities available. Experience in contact centres or insurance services is desirable but not essential, as full training is provided. Fully funded financial services qualifications delivering attractive career path opportunities are available. Please visit their website www.forwardemphasis.ie or apply via their careers page.
Thinking of changing your car in 2022? Think Nissan. Thinking of upgrading and enjoying new technology? Think Kia. Looking for value for the very best in after sales? Think iMotors, your #1 Nissan and Kia dealer in Donegal. Via a range of vehicles, please visit imotors.ie.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at...
Now, the time is 11:22. You're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show here on Highland Radio. We welcome on to it the General Manager of Letterkenny University Hospital, Sean Murphy, and a very happy new year to you, Sean, and all of your staff. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Right, now, there was a slight drop in the numbers of infectious cases. I believe they are on site at Letterkenny University Hospital yesterday, but we were the day before top of that table, unfortunately. What is the situation as it relates to cases on site today?
Okay, so this morning, Greg, we've got 61 COVID positive patients in the hospital. And with the numbers attending the emergency department, both COVID and non-COVID, and the pressures on our beds and the impact in terms of staff that aren't available to work, we've been under significant pressure really since Christmas. So since Stephen's Day onwards, we've been working under very severe pressure, and this week is we're really feeling it at the moment.
As much as you can, how many people are presenting at the hospital sick with COVID? How many are being tested coming to the hospital and found to have COVID, or how many have caught COVID whilst in the hospital? As I say, I don't expect you to have specific figures, but I know our listeners would be very interested in a sense of what's driving this massive increase.
Okay. So I suppose there's several factors that are driving the increase. So if I park COVID for a moment, we would have spoken back in November where I would have highlighted the fact that this year we've seen much higher numbers of patients attending the emergency department generally than compared with even pre-COVID in 2019. And that pattern hasn't changed. So there's a lot of very ill people in our community that need medical care and medical attention. That's now been exacerbated by the fact that there's a lot of patients becoming ill with COVID. And as I've said before, the fact that we need to stream the patients between COVID and non-COVID streams makes that assessment and treatment of patients all the more complicated because we're having to work two parallel systems side by side. Put it in context, as about a third of the patients, a little or maybe 40% of the patients that have presented to hospital in the last 24 hours, and that's been pretty much standard pattern, are COVID or respiratory symptomatic that are potentially COVID. And again, a number of those patients either come in with positive COVID tests or either PCR tests or antigen tests. And again, as we admit them, we are confirming that they are.
So how many of that 60 roughly, though, are sick in the hospital with COVID? Like because of COVID?
The majority of them are, but I couldn't give an exact figure.
Okay, so it's the
at
majority.
the
That's
yeah,
I understand that, and that's perfectly fine, Sean. It's just I'll be asked that question off air, and it's just useful whilst you were on to ask whilst you were on air. So people, with the amount of COVID that's in the community, people are reacting to the COVID, becoming ill, and they're presenting to the hospital.
They are, and in many cases they will have underlying conditions as well, which are being significantly exacerbated. I mean, after this call, I'm meeting with some of our clinicians, and again we'll be looking at in more detail in terms of those patients. But essentially, obviously, as we're under significant pressure at the moment, we've been looking. The patients that are in the hospital need to be in the hospital, and they're undergoing active treatment, and there are quite a number of quite sick patients here.
Okay, and we wish them a full and speedy recovery, because some of their family could be listening to them now. And that's I want to make sure I'm sensitive to it, Sean. I know you are, but you know what I mean. These are our people, or our people, are of our community. So. 5 in ICU is we haven't been at that figure for quite some time now. When we talk about ICU, is that ICU, and then of course there would be there'd be others that would be high dependency. Those so there are quite a number of people actually really quite sick.
There are, and you're absolutely right, Greg. We haven't been at that figure for quite some time, particularly with COVID patients in ICU. And that's a concern for us at the moment. It's certainly a concern for my team and myself that as we look into the week ahead, because that number, should it increase, is going to put us under significant pressure. And as you're aware, we took the decision last week to restrict a number of our services because, as I've already said, we were under pressure since Christmas, and we could see where the pattern was going, that things were going to get more challenging for us. And we needed to be able to redeploy staff for those that needed that emergency care. So, again, we have restricted quite a number of our services, and we might talk about that in a few minutes. But we've tried to keep those services that we can keep running operational. We may have to redeploy further staff to ICU, and that could cause necessitate more restrictions in the coming days. But what I would say, one of the things I would say at this point is we have, in some cases, we didn't book patients in for this week because we knew the pressures would be under. In some cases, we've had to contact patients, and we'll have to reschedule them. And I would say that if you have an appointment and haven't heard from the hospital, please turn up for it. If you have heard from the hospital and we've had to reschedule you, or defer your appointment or admission, I apologise. We are doing this in the best interest of being able to provide the service we can. I would ask two things. First of all, a lot of people are ringing in to ask, is their appointment cancelled, etc. That's putting extra pressure on the staff that are here. So we will contact patients that we are having to reschedule or defer.
If you don't get contacted by the hospital, you turn up. If it's being postponed or has to be rescheduled, you will be contacted by the hospital.
We will be contacting them. Absolutely.
This might help just in terms of avoiding the phone calls. How far out from a procedure might someone be contacted to say it's been cancelled? Because maybe people aren't hearing something 3 days out and they're going, I better check, and that could be causing some of the problems.
Okay, so at the moment we've already contacted everybody for this week.
Okay.
And we'll be making a decision again today and contacting people tomorrow in respect of next week.
Right, just one question as it relates to the... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Greg, so just two sort of qualifications or clarifications I put there. It is an evolving situation. right? So we may end up having to we try to give people as much notice as possible. As you said, we're very, very sensitive to the fact that people make a lot of arrangements to attend hospital appointments, and we don't want to be doing this at the last minute. On the other hand, we don't want to be cancelling and then unnecessarily if it's avoidable. So it is an evolving situation, and we're assessing on a daily basis. When I say if you have an appointment, please turn up, I would ask one thing. If you have any symptoms, if you have any COVID symptoms, if you feel unwell, please don't attend the appointment. Please contact the number on your appointment letter and let us know, and we will reschedule. And particularly, I give a number for the outpatient department for those, because most of the patients that will be coming in at the moment will be coming in for outpatient appointments. And then again, if you have symptoms, we're asking you, please don't put other patients or staff at risk of transferring COVID. So ring 074 912 3555.
Now, when we talk about
3555.
Yeah, and we'll retain that number here. We'll retain that number here, Sean, because people know our number just off by heart. Now, I just want to clarify as much as is possible. We heard confirmation of an outbreak at Letterkenny University Hospital. Can you give us a sense of, please, as it relates to, say, the 60 patients with COVID at the moment, how many of those were acquired on site? When we talk of an outbreak, and we saw a very rapid, we've seen like 8 cases a day, 12 new cases a day, 8 new cases a day, 7 new cases a day. Are they coming in from outside? How many of those people are catching COVID in the hospital?
The vast majority of patients that are COVID in the hospital at the moment are coming in with COVID. There is a small proportion that will have caught COVID within the hospital, and even there, sometimes it's difficult to be absolutely certain in terms of whether or not
they could have got it the day before they'd come into hospital.
Whether they came in and it was not detected on the initial admission, or whether they picked up from a visitor, and that's why we've actually restricted visiting at the moment. But there are some patients. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
There are some patients that have been contacts of patients with COVID in the hospital and have subsequently tested positive.
Can you give us an idea? And we don't. It's very important that we're local, and these are local people. But again, it might help with the public, generally speaking. Of the patients that you're seeing over the last couple of weeks, is there a profile of the patients? Is it across all age groups? Are you seeing cases in particular demographics? Like, are you able to, having spoken to those that are working the wards, and yourself, of course, to get a sense of who is getting sick with COVID at the moment?
Unfortunately, it's difficult to say, or not difficult to say. Unfortunately, it is across all age demographics, and we've seen more children that are COVID positive than we would have in the past. We've quite a lot of people in the sort of middle age and sort of in their 40s, 50s, and elderly patients. But we would have talked before, for instance, about it being particularly an issue of risk for the elderly. I would say that's not the pattern we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing across the spectrum from the 20s right through to the 80s plus.
Are you seeing any pattern in terms of the stay in hospital being any shorter with Omicron being prevalent at the moment? Not
as distinct a pattern as I would have hoped to have seen, to be honest with you. And again, a lot of these patients are in over the last week or so. Some patients are doing well and we're able to discharge them, but there's a lot of patients that are staying in at the moment. And as we've already talked, and we talked about the ICU numbers, we talked about the fact that patients are very sick. We now have 3 COVID wards in the hospital. We haven't been in that situation since the height of the second wave.
At what point do you have to make decisions about those in ICU? And there's been a rapid increase in cases in Sligo as well. They went from 4, 5 or 6. They're up in the 20 region now. They've got no one in ICU as far as I'm aware at the moment, and other hospitals in CL to hospital group. Like, are we at a point, or is it always ongoing, where you have to say, that maybe we need to transfer patients?
Oh, at this point, with the numbers we have in ICU, in every case where we require another admission, we will be assessing the options of either transfer out or extend and bring other staff in to open up extra capacity. And those bringing other staff in. When I say bringing other staff in, it's not like just sitting at home waiting to be called in. We're taking them out of other areas, and we would see other services then further restricted.
Now let's talk about staff, because it's the perfect storm. And the word perfect seems inappropriate, but I think it's a well-used phrase in that you are seeing this surge in cases, but obviously your staff are of the community, and there's an awful lot of COVID in the community, so there's going to be an awful lot of staff out for having COVID, being close contacts, or for other issues, or maybe they're particularly vulnerable. At this point, how many staff are you down?
We're down just under 300 staff, and that's out of a workforce of 2,230. So it's about 13% of our staff are out, and as you said, in a number of categories. So some are staff that are cocooning because they themselves have got health conditions that make them particularly vulnerable, and they're cocooning. Some of the staff, many of the staff are positive, and others are either symptomatic or close contacts, and they're waiting for the all clear to be able to return to work, because obviously, like we asked patients not to attend if they're symptomatic, we also need to make sure we're not bringing staff in if they are symptomatic. And that's putting us under very significant pressure, and putting our existing staff under very significant pressure.
You have a high vaccination rate amongst your staff, and we have a
very high vaccination rate amongst
and we
staff,
have a high vaccination rate amongst the general population. It's at least 85%. Are you? I don't know. We might as well have honest conversations here. Are you disappointed that we are still seeing so many people becoming ill enough to require treatment, even with the level of vaccination we have out there? And my understanding is okay, and you might not have the figures to hand, that many of these ill people are vaccinated.
Many of them are. That's true.
Is it disappointing?
Fact, the majority of them are, and yes, it is disappointing. Obviously, we would have hoped that we would have seen less requirement for hospital admissions. So the fact that we're under the pressures we are at the moment is disappointing. And I suppose I would repeat something I would have said to you before Christmas when I asked people to, even for those that were fully vaccinated, and I was saying, please be mindful that there is still a risk of contracting COVID. Please follow public health advice and take sensible precautions. And I would re-emphasize that continually at the moment. What we need to do is take the measures that we can to stop further
the vaccine's not a silver bullet. It's going to take other stuff as well. I mean, that's, I think, pretty much clear. So in terms of visiting, what is the situation? I know you talked about it a little earlier, but I want to make sure that you get everything out that's important for the people to
that's
listen
fine.
to.
So again, and you spoke, Greg, at the start of this interview about being sympathetic and understanding to the public, and I think that was a well-made point. Couldn't agree with you more. We are all very, very conscious. It's a difficult time for the patients. It's a difficult time for our staff. It's also a very difficult time for families. We have stopped all visiting as of yesterday in the hospital, and that was on the basis that we had evidence of where there was transmission resulting from visiting, and again, it's not something we do lightly, and we understand how important having visitors is to the recovery of patients. But we've stopped visiting except in very, very exceptional circumstances.
Are we talking end of life?
Patients are extremely ill, and we look to facilitate. But again, I would ask people to please understand and make contact by phone or with the patients rather than visiting. We really need to stop the spread of COVID within the hospital and within the community.
You see, the difficult thing we have, Sean, and I won't hold you longer than a minute and a half, is that really you probably aren't seeing the Christmas Day, St. Stephen's Day, New Year's Eve Day transmissions at this point. Like, what do you think the next 2 weeks looks like?
And Caroline asked me that before, and then it's a bit of crystal ball gazing. But at this stage, I've and the team here, we are assuming that things will get worse before they get better. We don't see the numbers easing up. I think we are going to be, as I said, we've already been under pressure for the last week. That pressure is going to increase. We are on a daily basis, and literally on a daily basis, Greg, reassessing the services we can provide. We're redeploying staff to support the critical care and emergency care areas, keep our beds open, and again, I've already alluded to it. I can't say definitively, but my feeling is that we're more likely to see further restrictions in service. At the moment, as we're running our outpatients and our ambulatory gynecology service, our ambulatory urology service, and most but not all of our endoscopy service. I would expect that we may see further restrictions in those services over the next week if the numbers continue.
What is the overall patient population of the hospital? I mean, 60 with COVID. Roughly, how many more would be?
There will be just under 280 other patients in the hospital. That includes maternity and pediatrics and oncology patients, etc.
Right. All right. Listen, I hope we touched on everything there as much as we could in the time that we have, Sean.
Yeah, I suppose a couple of things. First of all, I'd just like to repeat my apologies to staff if we've had to reschedule them, and ask the public to bear with us. Our emergency department is under very significant pressure. Patients who attend will be seen based on clinical need. Less acute patients, less serious patients will have experienced lengthy waiting times, and we apologise and ask people to bear with us. And please bear with the staff; they are doing their best, and it's not their fault that the waiting times are as long as they are. I'd like to acknowledge our staff who, through the Christmas, we talk about Christmas and New Year, so many of our staff come in, done extra shifts, and kept this hospital running 24/7. And just to acknowledge the work that.
Have you had to invoke the derogation much?
Sorry?
Do you have to use the derogation much?
We have done very limited derogation and in very exceptional circumstances, largely because, again, we're looking to avoid anything that will increase the risk of transmission.
Listen, I ran over a bit. I appreciate your time, though, Sean. Okay, take care of yourself. Sean Murphy, General Manager of Letterkenny University Hospital. I mean, we can talk about 28,000 cases, 1 million cases, and all that kind of stuff, but that is the key information. It's quite depressing, my thoughts, with those who are sick, and hopefully they all get out and get better. But that's the reality. Everything else is numbers, but that's us. That's fellow members of our community that are in hospital sick. And you heard there, it's mixed. It's right across the age groups. A lot of the people in there are vaccinated. I don't know if they're boosted or not. I don't know if Sean knows if they are or not, but that's the reality. So hopefully this passes very, very quickly, and hopefully those people get well very quickly, because every single one of those has another 7, 8 or 9 or 10 or maybe more people worried about them, asking are they okay. They know this goes in waves. They're wondering, okay, they're good today, but could be tomorrow the day their oxygen levels drop. You know yourself. Okay, so these are real people. That's the real face of what we're going through at the moment, and hopefully we're going to be through it and out of it as soon as is possible. But that is what's happening, and those people are us. There are people, and all of their families and friends who are worried about them. There are people too as well, and that's the very important situation, how it affects us as it relates to the situation that we're in, if that makes sense.
The best place to get a new bed or mattress at a great price is Restex Beds Letterkenny. The massive January sale is now on. Sponsors of today's show.
Getting together might take a bit more planning this year. Before you do, remember to first think RSVP, Risk, symptoms, venue, people. Risk. What's the risk? Am I vaccinated or have I got my booster? Symptoms. Am I currently showing symptoms of COVID-19? Venue. Are they following the guidelines? Will I be wearing a mask? And people. How many people am I meeting? How many households are coming together? Let's all RSVP ahead so we can stay safe and enjoy Christmas this year. Find out more at gov.ie/riskaware. Supported by the Government of Ireland.
For great fuel deals, contact Gortley Sales and Hire. Large sacks and trailer loads of logs. Also briquettes, coal, kindling and gas with free delivery locally. Contact Gortley Sales and Hire in Letterkenny on 9126276.
Sheridan Security now introducing zero-wire smart alarm systems. Zero wire, zero mess and a real peace of mind. With a simple press of a button, your alarm can be set or unset, or download the free app and control it from your phone. Call us today on 074 912 6025 and get your alarm from €299. Stay local, stay safe and protect what you value most with Sheridan Security Systems.
Store and Go Springtown Dairy, the north of Ireland's only temperature-controlled smart access individually sized storage units.
Store and Go offers storage for personal storage, house moves and renovations, business storage for excess stock or filing systems. Once signed up, you can access 24 hours a day through an app on your phone, gaining access through 4 levels of security to your most precious possessions.
Call Store and Go Springtown Dairy on 02871 278 900 to discuss your needs and get bespoke advice, or get a free quote at storeandgo.net.
Crawford Tiles and More Castlefin. January sale now on. Get 15% off everything in store. 15% off all tiles, bathware, wood, carpet, vinyl, adhesives and grout. Yes, you heard right. 15% off everything in store for 2 weeks only. Crawford Tiles and More Castlefin. 914392.
Is the appearance of your staff important to your business? It's the first point of contact for customers when entering your premises. At C&M Embroidery in Letterkenny, they have a huge range of clothing covering all areas of the workplace. It's widely known that customers warm to and trust employees that present themselves well. Have your company name embroidered or printed on all your work uniforms. Contact C&M Embroidery on 07491 28097 and get your staff looking their best.
At Smith's Daleside, we offer a wide range of yo feed, rich in high-pro soya, cereals, vitamin E and selenium. Smith's Daleside, market leaders since 1865. Call us today on 074 9171 300.
Most people say that Donegal is the coolest place on the planet, but up here we know that sometimes it can be the coldest. Charles Bunner & Sons Ballybuffet is the one-stop shop for all your heating needs. We have a huge range of multi-fuel and wood pellet stoves and ranges, spare parts for all major stove and range brands, plumbing and bathroom ware, all at exceptional prices. So visit our showrooms where our friendly and experienced team will be ready to help you. Charles Bunner & Sons Ballybuffet and the stovestore.ie, where you can always do a good deal better.
Okay, a caller says I was in hospital via ED between Christmas and New Year and just want to say a massive thank you to the staff who were fantastic. Glad to be home safe after their wonderful care, and I'm glad to hear that. Another, my husband has Crohn's disease and his treatment has been cancelled for the last 2 weeks in a row, resulting in my husband being very sick. He's being directed to ED and told that there is no guarantee that his infusion will go ahead. Why is his health any different to that of a COVID patient? My husband needs immediate treatment. Can Sean tell me when he's going to get treated? I keep ringing, but I keep getting fobbed off. The bottom line is though that if they don't do what they're doing, your husband could end up getting COVID in the hospital, and that could be very negative for him. I presume that's part of the motivation. But I understand exactly where you're from. I'm not a spokesperson for the HSE or the hospitals, but I get you. Another one via Facebook here. 50 years, young. I'm crippled with pain in my knee the last 3 years. Was referred to Dr. Thompson in June last year. The pain was getting worse, so I had to cut work down to 2 days, 2 half days. Still bad. Phone to find out how long I would wait, as it was written urgent. I was told 60 months, 5 years. So I rang the manager's office on numerous occasions and asked for a letter to say I have to wait 60 months. But no, they do not write those letters, just wondering why. We'll try and get answers to some of those questions. Have you considered the cross-border? You have to front load it. I know you have to front load it, but you sound like a candidate for it. You can get it done privately, pay for it, and get refunded by the HSE. If there's enough interest in that, we can do a feature on that, by the way, if that would help people out there waiting. A caller says, I went for a hip replacement at the beginning of December and arrived for the appointment at 7 a.m. in the morning, having made all the arrangements with my family and friends' support, as I'm 80 years old, only to be told that the appointment had been cancelled, and since no one could accompany me, I was left stranded. It was very frustrating. I'm really sorry, genuinely really, really sorry to hear that. Right, now, the end of the programme we're going to dedicate to, mostly, James Donahue, a fifth-year student at Holy Rosary College. Good morning to you, James. How are you getting on?
I'm good now. How are you?
Good to have you in the show. You are a transition year student at the moment, aren't you?
No, I'm a fifth-year student.
Fifth-year student, okay. Yeah. Right, good stuff. Tell us about this initiative of yours. It's Know Your Phone. It's a book.
Yeah, so basically it's a smartphone guidebook, and it teaches people how to use a smartphone. It starts off the beginner aspects, like the different parts of the phone, and then it moves on to making calls, texts, and then to more advanced aspects like joining a Zoom meeting and sending an email.
So is it a case that this would be very good then for people who would call themselves technophobes? You know, they haven't used a phone yet, and, you know, they're probably more used to reading, so they can read about how they can use their phone. Is that kind of the thought process here, or what is it, James?
The whole idea came from my own granny, who actually got a phone last Christmas, and she was finding it hard to use, and I started writing out notes for her. And then when the Student Enterprise competition came along, because that was in September, we were stuck for an idea. And that competition is where students around Ireland, we make our own businesses and we go into a competition, and then it goes all the way up to All Ireland. So you have county, provincial, and then All Ireland. And I was stuck for an idea. So myself, there's two of us in it. So there's myself, James Donahue, and Paul Mannion. And we came up with this idea to help as many people as we can with the smartphone. Now, when we started off, we kind of thought, well, the people who are buying this book are people who won't know anything about smartphones. But it actually has turned out that there's people who have had smartphone for years, and they've saw the book and they're like, whoa, there's stuff in this book that, you know, I don't know, I've never heard of.
And I'm thinking, you know, even well. I'm just picking up my phone here, looking at it, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff we take for granted. On the side of it, there's a fingerprint sensor, and there's a power button, and there's a volume button. Now, I know that, but there's nothing to tell me that that's there. I just know that because I use phones. You know, it's presumed that I know. Even on a remote control for a TV, you know, it has the volume controls. You can see with your eyes what to do. But on a phone, a lot of that, really most basic stuff is not explained.
Yeah, well, in the book itself, we kind of like we touched on the internet, making calls, making texts. We kind of like the book kind of starts off with the beginner things, and then it kind of builds its way up, you know, to more advanced things. Because, you know, maybe some people wouldn't have the interest, you know, they just want to make a phone call, a text. We have like Zoom, WhatsApp, because I know at the moment with COVID, you know, a lot of people can't talk to family abroad, and I've got a lot of good feedback saying we can use this now. We're talking to family in America, and, you know, it's going good.
Yeah, all right. And Zoom is actually, I think, overcomplicated, but maybe that's the I use it all the time. We're doing it right now. I think WhatsApp or video calls via Facebook or Telegram simpler, but Zoom can be perhaps more complicated than it needs to be. And as well as that, you know, you talked about your own grandparents there. You know, not everyone wants to be sort of taught a certain way by saying, now you do this and now you do that. They want to be empowered and say, right, I'll get the book, I'll learn it myself, I can learn it. You know, a lot of people want that that process themselves to be gone through.
Yeah, even my own granny herself, she kind of felt like she was annoying me, or constantly coming with the phone.
Was she?
This isn't working, yeah.
Was she annoying you?
No, not really, no. I do anything for her now.
I know. Sorry, Granny, I'm only joking. But she felt that she was being a nuisance.
Yeah, sort of. And then she has the book now, so she can do herself, and anything extra, then she can come to me. She kind of has me whenever she needs me, you know.
All right, okay. And as you say, you know, this is not just for an older generation. It's presumably people who just use it for the basic things, you know, the people that might just still use the Nokia 9010 or whatever it might be, that if they want to learn and to understand more about the workings of the phone, this would help them as well.
Yeah, like the stuff there and like the Google Maps app, like a lot of people don't know that's available on the phone. And
amazing.
That's brilliant.
Google Lens is absolutely brilliant. You know, if you've bought something and you don't know where you can buy it from again, you know, like I employed it for it's a stupid thing, but it was a little toy for Hudson, my son. Can't get it anywhere. One was sold in a shop, but you put Google Lens it, take the picture, and it lists very similar looking images and where you can buy it. You know, something so simple like that there. And I only discovered Google Lens in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it's just things like that, like people don't know about, and they're great benefits on the phone, you know, because the phone has so much benefits that people don't really know about.
QR code reading as well. You know, people find that writing very small. You point it if there's a QR code there, and it pops up and brings you to a website or puts the password into your phone for Wi-Fi or whatever it might be. Lots of different things. But it also can be just simply about texting, WhatsApping and all that kind of stuff. Listen, fair play to you. It's called Know Your Phone. It's a book. It's just €12. That's including postage. And how do people get their hands on it if they want to, James?
At the moment we're taking, what we're doing is we're taking post orders and checks in the post, and then when I receive that payment, then they'd have their address in that envelope and I'd send the book on to them straight away.
Fantastic. Okay. And what's the reaction been like so far? I don't know how long it's been out. Hopefully, interviews like this will help, but...
Yeah, it's been out now about 3 weeks, and it's kind of more locally around Galway here, and we've sold 75 of them. So I wasn't expecting that much at all. So I'm kind of ordering more in now at the moment.
That's
it's doing very well. I'm very impressed with it.
All right, well done. And it's a great idea. And, you know, this is just one idea you have as a business student. Anything else in the offing? I mean, what else? Could you do one for a microwave?
Yeah, or even thinking of doing...
or a washing machine. Do one for me for a washing machine. I can't keep putting it on the 59 minutes all the time. But I'm joking to some extent, James. But this is something that you could do a series of things with.
Yeah, it is, because we looked into the laptop option, and and even the tablets. You know, there's so many different things out there that we can hopefully work into.
All right, listen, fair play to you. Well done. It's you, and are you working with a guy called Paul, is it?
Yeah, Paul Mannion.
All right, well done to the two of you. It's a good thing.
Thanks very much.
And we have your details if people want to contact that number to order a copy. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care of yourself. That was James Donahue there, fifth year business student at the Holy Rosary College. That is where we have to leave it on the show today. Thank you very much to all of you who took part in the program.